Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 66, Chapter 66, Type 5 Black Snake and Intermediate Defense. Chapter 66, Type 5 Black Snake and Intermediate Defense. During the year 1007 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, month of northern wind, Fred was almost able to get down from the ground, which made Levi feel much more at ease. The incomparably expensive sacred medicine did not go to waste. Sometimes, the church was still relatively reliable and not completely useless. The possible enemy that Levi had been on guard against had not come for several months. This made him a little puzzled. Had they already forgotten about him? For a moment, Levi was a little confused. On the other side, purchasing the Scarlet Warhorse was also on the agenda now that Fred had recovered. At the end of the month, Fred's friends also sent over the 5 Scarlet Warhorses that Levi had bought. As soon as they arrived, Levi tried to tame them with his beast taming technique, which reached its maximum level. With the Wild Heart, although he did not share telepathy with them, unlike with the 3 brothers, he could quite understand why these Scarlet Warhorses were so difficult to tame. With Levi's current beast taming technique, he used carrot and stick methods to tame a Scarlet Warhorse. Soon after, he successfully tamed the others. That's all. It's not too difficult. The curse of the Blood Rage tribe is just an excuse for incompetent horse trainers. While Levi had little Milan and the others prepare the iron needed to forge the horse armor, he also began to purchase more horses. With the income from the forging industry and the vast amount of money he had plundered from Knight Bernard's house, it was enough to last Levi for a long time. Now, Blackwater Valley was flourishing. The year 1007 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, the month of winter, had arrived. The cold wind pierces the bones, bleak and sad. The enemy Levi had imagined had not arrived, and he did not plan to wait any longer. He wanted to take the initiative to attack. The reason why he had such confidence was naturally because of the increase in his strength. That's right, Levi's Black Snake breathing technique was at the 5th level. Black Snake breathing technique, level 5, 1/30,000. Special effect. Intermediate defense. The Black Snake breathing technique was challenging to cultivate. Levi's only excellent breathing technique had finally reached the 5th level, and he achieved an intermediate defense special effect. Correspondingly, the black gas produced by Levi's Black Snake seed had already spread from his arms to his head and neck. He estimated that once the Black Snake breathing technique reached the 6th level, it should apply to his upper body, similar to Iron Mountain. However, it was already enough for now. After all, Levi's upper body was protected with heart-protecting plates, chainmail, and leather armor. Unless one was an expert like Iron Mountain, one could not penetrate these defenses and cause severe damage. With Levi's current beginner speed and beginner vibrosensing, it would be tough for ordinary knights to attack Levi unless they were knights who specialized in speed. All in all, he had defense. Strength _snept_ or even a rare atrilled P like percentin. Levi was already far superior to ordinary people. In this era, there should be no one like him who cultivated so many breathing techniques at the same time, and all of them had been cultivated to the 4th level. Levi's 4-dimensional attributes were not just the combined effect of 4 different types of low-level knights. This was a qualitative change. Now, if I meet Iron Mountain again, I don't need to use poison or the help of the 3 brothers. I can easily hammer him to death and crush him. And Iron Mountain's strength was already considered rare in the Bird of Death's voice. Besides the 5 Shadows of Death, only a few people were stronger than him. Besides Grand Knights like the 5 Shadows of Death, I'm not afraid of anyone. Even if a real Grand Knight were to fight me, with my methods, it's still uncertain who would win. Hold on, that sounds a little too arrogant. Escape is the best strategy when we see a grand knight. Besides the black snake breathing technique, Levi's man-faced spider breathing technique and siren breathing technique improved slightly. His golden cross slash had also improved, while his forging and pharmacy skills were slowly enhanced. After all, Levi did not have time to waste on the last two life skills lately. Now that everything was ready and Fred had recovered, Levi did not want to hide in his territory and wait for others to assassinate him. Why not take the initiative to assassinate others? As for the target of the assassination, Levi had already thought of it. The first was the stronghold of the Bird of Death's Voice in Icewind City. No matter who had commissioned the Bird of Death's Voice, since he had been messing with him repeatedly, he had to be prepared for Levi's revenge. Apart from the stronghold in Icewind City, there were other strongholds on Iron Mountain's map. However, they were too far from Levi, and many were outside the kingdom. He planned to visit them one by one when he had the chance. The Bird of Death's Voice could experience the feeling of being targeted. The best way to solve danger was to eliminate the enemies who could threaten his life. Levi had arranged the matters of the territory. Although Fred could not fight now, it was not a problem for him to maintain order in the region. He also transferred the control of the three brothers to Fred and ordered them to obey Fred in the next few days. That way, if anything happened in the territory, Fred could activate the three brothers to solve it. Levi had refined bags of man-faced spider breath and a small bottle of man-faced spider tears in the shelter. He also brought a few man-faced spider's kiss. These poisons could save lives at critical moments. As a result, Levi's pharmacy skills increased quite a bit. After making all the necessary preparations, Levi put on the white wolf mask and left the shelter under cover of the night, quietly leaving Blackwater Valley. With Levi's speed, he arrived at the familiar Icewind City in a few days. It was winter, and it was snowing heavily. Many people were frozen to death on the road, but no one collected their corpses. Levi frowned. These people seemed to be refugees. Was there a big war somewhere recently? Levi had been engrossed in cultivation recently and had no idea what was happening outside. He did not immediately go to the Bird of Death's Voice's stronghold in Icewind City but came to Shining Tavern. In the middle of the winter, a beautiful woman wore little clothes to attract customers to the tavern. The gatekeeper looked at the white wolf masked man and handed him a glass of dark beer. "Drink this glass of snow beer. I hope you have the Snow Knight's courage and travel safely alone." Chapter 67, Chapter 67, Evernight Kingdom and Snow Queen Elsa. Chapter 67, Evernight Kingdom and Snow Queen Elsa. The entrance ticket to the tavern today was snow beer. The Snowflake Knight was a legendary knight who rose to prominence in the north. It was said that snowflakes fluttered when he was born, and the north wind whistled. That was the month of flowing fire. No matter the era or race, there was no lack of legendary stories. Levi drank the wine and entered the tavern. It had been a long time since he last came here. Levi could capture the breathing, talking, slamming of the table, drinking, and all kinds of movements through his beginner vibrosensori. This made him feel like a character in Xiangxia novels. He tidied his clothes and sat alone at a table, drinking some wine and listening to the tavern bards telling legendary knight stories. Levi sighed in his heart. Perhaps one day, when he became a legendary living knight, he would pass by this tavern and listen to the bards telling stories with exaggerated artistic techniques. It would be a different feeling. I will become a legend, I will. Levi sat in the tavern from the evening until dawn. He listened to the conversations of the wandering knights and bounty hunters around him, and from the words of the older men who reeked of alcohol, he roughly knew the current situation. The refugees he had seen frozen to death by the roadside were from the north. Ever since the millennium, it was as if the entire world had entered the Little Ice Age. In short, it was getting colder year by year. The living conditions in the northernmost lands were worsening. The time spent in summer was getting faster, while the time spent in winter increased. Not only the northern lands of the Emerald Kingdom but even the northern lands of the neighboring Tuva Empire also suffered from such harsh weather. However, the region most affected by this freezing winter was the country in the extreme north of the continent, not the Emerald Kingdom or Tuva Empire. It was the Evernight Kingdom, also known as the Land of Winter. This was a country that believed in the snow goddess. The ruler was the Snow Queen Elysia, who was said to be the daughter of God. Many of these refugees had fled from the Evernight Kingdom. It was not just cold. After all, the people of the Kingdom of Evernight had lived in the cold for generations so that they could adapt. The terrifying thing was that some refugees claimed they had seen snow monsters or evil spirits in the snowstorm, known as the snow demon. In the past, no one would have believed such a thing. However, with the increasing frequency of evil spirit attacks in various places over the years, even the Church of Holy Light began to admit that there was indeed some kind of evil spirit in this world. The Church defined evil spirits as the minions of the devil. They were demons born from the 7 deadly sins of humans in the mortal world, and it was because the people of the kingdom were not loyal enough to the faith of Heavenly Father. Therefore, the Church used this as an excuse to start building in remote places without churches, such as the Blackwater Valley. They encouraged the devotees to believe in the Father more devoutly than before. Only the holy light of the Father and the holy sword of the Radiant Knights could subdue the evil spirits. In short, the people believed the rumors about the snow demon. Currently, everyone in Icewind City is in a state of panic. Some wealthy nobles had already begun to move south. They wanted to go to the lush forest province, in the warm south. Some nobles even planned to move their families to the molten kingdom that believed in eternal fire. Levi listened to everything that happened in the tavern and sighed, the world is getting more and more chaotic. Evil spirits, snow demons, the wilderness brotherhood, the bird of death's voice, ambitious nobles, the emerald royalty that exists only in name, and the open and secret struggles between the various theocracy. Levi remembered the frozen bones on the road and cursed, it's hard to live. However, the price of serfs will probably drop significantly during this period. We can buy more serfs. Levi stood up. After sitting for the entire night, he had a pretty good understanding of the situation outside. Ultimately, he still issued a commission in the corner of the Shining Tavern. Request content, giant breathing technique or other breathing technique inheritance diagrams. Request reward, starting from 10 gold coins. Negotiable. If interested, contact the breathing technique collector, Mr. White Wolf Gerald, through the Shining Tavern. Levi had no hope of finding the giant breathing technique, but trying would not hurt. Moreover, even if he lacked the giant breathing technique, it would be great to collect other breathing techniques. After leaving the tavern, Levi's figure disappeared into the darkness. He walked into an empty alley. As he walked, his body began to change. In the end, his body was completely different from before. He put on the white wolf mask that he had personally forged. It was made of refined iron and mixed with a bit of mithril. This was made in imitation of the Bird of Death mask. It could defend against poison and protect the face. He had also personally forged Frostmourne version 2.0, which contained a piece of mithril the size of a baby's fist. Just this piece of mithril alone cost Levi 200 gold coins. Only such a top-grade weapon could withstand the destruction of Ripple Force and fully unleash the power of the Golden Cross Slash. He had also forged a knight's sword for Fred that was slightly inferior, and he had also fused it with mithril. Both of them had suffered because of the poor quality of their weapons. Such a thing must not happen again. Levi took out a small bottle that contained a highly toxic substance. Frostmourne was smeared with the man-faced spider's tears, and the same went for the black snake dagger. Everything was ready, and the slaughter began. In the south of the Icewind City, there was an abandoned castle. This nameless castle from hundreds of years ago was already dilapidated, and even rumors of evil spirits appeared. Regardless of whether the evil spirits were real, no one lived in this ancient castle or would come to this eerie place. After passing through the dim yellow corridor, there was another world inside. This was the secret stronghold of the Bird of Death's voice in Icewind City. Inside the castle was a modified training ground. The young members of the organization, who had been found in Icewind City and the surrounding areas and had the talent to cultivate the siren breathing technique, were practicing assassination techniques under the guidance of a person called Mentor. Their expressions were either numb or fanatical. As they practiced, they chanted the contents of the book The Tribute of Shadows. Only those who put death and fear behind their backs can become true assassins. What are assassins? We walk in the shadows and see the real world that those ignorant people cannot see. Light is just an illusion, a falsehood. Shadows and darkness are the true appearance of the universe. Only in this way can you become Shadow Lord's shadow servants after you die and live forever. A mentor explained the Shadow Lord's teachings to the organization's members. At the same time, he was assigning assassination missions to some inexperienced assassins. After finishing all this, he tied a letter to the leg of a red-eyed raven. He had been ordered to investigate the whereabouts of Iron Mountain, the gold assassin in the organization, but investigations had been fruitless. He wanted to pass this news to Pale Shadow. As far as the mentor knew, Iron Mountain was ordered to assassinate Blackwater Valley Baron Levi, but there was no news yet. The people in the organization were not even sure if Iron Mountain had carried out the assassination. After all, Iron Mountain was a disciple of a big family and a gold assassin. He had always done things his way. The mentor was more inclined to believe that Iron Mountain did not carry out the assassination mission. He had sent people to investigate, but everything in the Blackwater Valley was peaceful, and there was no sign of a dead lord. Moreover, the mentor believed that with Iron Mountain's high-level night realm and his proficiency in 2 breathing techniques, it should be impossible for him to fail if he were to carry out the assassination. If even Iron Mountain failed, then only the 5 shadows could succeed within the Bird of Death's voice. However, it had been many years since the 5 shadows had personally assassinated a junior. The mentor released the raven in his hand and wanted to send the investigation results to the Pale Shadow. The raven had just taken off when a loud explosion sounded. An arrow exploded its head, and a figure wearing a white wolf mask appeared at the end of the corridor. Behind him were the corpses of the 2 gatekeepers. The fearless white wolf descended. Chapter 68, Chapter 68, Killing Feast and Vortex Beast Breathing Technique. Chapter 68, Killing Feast and Vortex Beast Breathing Technique. Levi shot 4 arrows in a row, directly piercing the hearts of his targets. Among the members of the organization who were practicing in the hall, 4 of them were caught off guard and had their heads blown off by Levi. A 100% accuracy in a max-level archery skill was terrifying. Looking at this bloody scene, everyone finally reacted. There's an attack. Enemy attack. Prepare for battle. How many people? 1. He's alone. What? Could it be a grand night? Then, the next moment, they received an unstoppable arrow. Some people started to hide behind cover, while others raised their shields. However, 2 people still died from the arrows. If he shoots, we shoot too. Whoosh. 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 Arrows flew towards Levi. Levi's body was like an elegant leopard cat, dodging most arrows. Most rookies here could not hit him with their mediocre skills, even if he did not move. The few arrows Levi did not manage to dodge could not break through his defenses. His torso and limbs were covered in high-quality chainmail and thick leather armor. White smoke rose from his arms and head like a dead knight reborn from the ashes. Under the iron white wolf mask was a face as black as a demon god, and white smoke that was about 10 feet long came out of Levi's mouth and nose. He circulated his breathing techniques to the maximum level. He was swift and shuttled through the rain of arrows. As he ran, he shot arrows until he finished them. Among the members present, Except for those who were highly skilled and had protection, all were killed or seriously injured by the arrows. The mentor was an official knight, but seeing this scene, he lost all his will to fight. He gave up the safety of his students and searched for a secret passage to escape. At the same time, 2 other mentors who had been cultivating rushed out. "Why are you running? The 3 of us will attack together." Immediately, the 3 official knights each took out their weapons. There were thin swords, daggers, and even the assassin meteor hammer. "Everyone, attack! Shadow Lord is watching us." As they shouted, the surviving students picked up the weapons on the ground and rushed toward the figure. Then, Levi shot the last arrow at them. The arrow did not hit anyone but the dome. In an instant, the powder on the arrowhead exploded. A pile of white powder fell from the sky and filled the hall. Cough cough. Achoo. Ha. Achoo. Quick lime attack. Be careful, this isn't quick lime. It might be poisonous fog. Everyone, hold your breath. Those with bird of death masks put them on. An experienced mentor said. On the other side, Levi had finished shooting his arrows. He pulled out Frostmourne. Ripple force activated. Kill. The cross-shaped sword light tore through the void. The long sword was the first to strike a mentor holding a thin sword. Ripples appeared in the air. The mentor's thin sword shattered. The fragments flew into his body, and he was in so much pain that he wanted to die. How could these mentors, who were only low-level knights, be a match for Levi, a mid-level knight with a 5A panel? Thrust. Die. Levi roared. This crosscut directly clipped the body of an official knight and his chainmail in half. His internal organs and intestines flew everywhere, and blood spurted out, spraying onto another mentor's face beside him. Ah! No matter who you are, I'm going to kill you. The assassin wielding the meteor hammer smashed toward Levi from the front while the other wielding the dagger attacked from behind. From both sides, more members of the organization were attacking. The hair on Levi's back stood on end. The long sword that he had been thrusting forward suddenly stabbed backward. With the beginner vibroperception, he could feel even the slightest movement of the air within a 10-meter radius. Not to mention the other party's backstab. Levi's Frostmourne pierced the mentor's stomach, and his intestines flowed out. His face was filled with disbelief. Too weak. Too weak. You guys are too weak. Bathed in blood, Levi grabbed the incoming meteor hammer with his palm filled with black gas. He pulled out Frostmourne and slashed at the chains of the meteor hammer. Golden cross slash, ripple force. The chain of the meteor hammer snapped. Seeing this, the mentor holding the meteor hammer was dumbfounded. What kind of monster was this? His speed, strength, and defense were all above his. That powerful reaction ability almost did not have any blind spots. And this terrifying sword skill. Levi sneered and threw the meteor hammer. The hammer blasted. It landed heavily on the mentor's chest. He was directly sent flying, and Levi did not show mercy. He casually killed 2 student assassins who overestimated themselves. Then, with a leap, he killed the last mentor. Then, he panted slightly and looked at the scattered members of the organization who were completely frightened out of their wits. Someone asked in confusion, "Who are you? Why do you want to kill us? Why? Please, let me go. I haven't killed anyone yet. Shadow Lord, please save your devout believers." Some knelt and begged for mercy, while others prayed to God. Some people tried to resist, but they fell to the ground before they could take a few steps. Their fate was unknown. Levi did not pay any attention to these people. He calmly took the lives of these students, who were not much more substantial than ordinary people, and certainly inferior to Levi's well-trained soldiers. Regardless of whether they had killed anyone before, they no longer had the right to do so now. The terrifying figure wearing the white wolf mask announced their deaths before any aid arrived. It was a one-sided massacre, and most were poisoned to death. Levi quickly killed the remaining survivors. He looked at the corpses on the ground and began to count the gold coins left behind by these people. Finally, after cleaning up the battlefield, Levi counted over 1,000 gold coins and various weapons. He was also happy to have found a breathing technique inheritance diagram on a mentor's body and a letter on a crow's leg. Levi first read the letter. Then, Levi pondered. The pale shadow did not seem to know that Iron Mountain's assassination attempt had failed. The breathing technique made Levi's eyes light up. Vortex Beast Breathing Technique. It's an excellent quality bloodline breathing technique. However, now was not the time to study the breathing technique. Levi put away the breathing technique inheritance map, piled the corpses, and burned them to ashes. From now on, a spirit named White Wolf will walk on this land and hunt down the members of the Bird of Death's voice tirelessly. Wearing a white wolf mask, Levi quickly left the castle with the spoils of war he had obtained. The crows circled behind him, recounting the deaths of lives. Chapter 69, Chapter 69, Extreme Forging, Craftsmanship Special Effect. Chapter 69, Extreme Forging, Craftsmanship Special Effect. This revenge against the Bird of Death's voice was too satisfying. Levi could finally hold his head high after the 3 assassination attempts. The organization had lost 3 official knights and mentors, as well as a large number of apprentices. He had also robbed the gold coins in the stronghold. Even for a large organization, it was a heavy loss. After this battle, Levi had a preliminary understanding of his strength. 3 low-level knights and so many apprentice assassins were utterly helpless against Levi. It would be difficult for an ordinary high-level knight to achieve such a feat. After returning to Blackwater Valley, Levi stored all the 1,000 gold coins he had plundered in his shelter. Then, he opened the breathing technique inheritance map he had just obtained. On the screen, a fat yellow worm with thorns all over its body crawled out from a vast swamp. It looked ferocious and looked down at the swamp. Surrounding the worm were small people with strange and distorted postures and movements. This was a legendary terrifying worm monster that lived in the swamp. It was said that every time it appeared, it could devour countless creatures around it. Levi counted and found that there were a total of 36 miniature figures on the inheritance map. Levi muttered, "Why are there only 36? This was only one more than the man-faced spider breathing technique." According to the pattern he had discovered before, the more little figures on the breathing technique inheritance map, the higher the quality. Is this not an excellent breathing technique? The creator of this breathing technique inheritance diagram lied. Or could 36 be the number distinguishing between the shallow and excellent levels? The black snake breathing technique, an excellent breathing technique, had 71 tiny human images. Levi could not figure it out, no matter how hard he thought about it. This question required more breathing techniques to verify. He had already issued a request in the Shining Tavern. He should be able to obtain more breathing techniques next. Forget it. Let's cultivate first. Levi did not rest and started to study the inheritance diagram. The Vortex Beast breathing technique was a breathing technique that focused on one's powerful physique. After cultivation, a knight's physique would be even more different from ordinary people's. This physique mainly focuses on the body's resistance, immunity, and self-healing ability. As for the exact effects, Levi would only know after he cultivated. In the blink of an eye, the month of winter passed. In New Year's first month of the year 1008 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, the Blackwater Valley was filled with a joyous and peaceful atmosphere. Sir Fred's body had recovered a lot, he could move normally but still could not exercise strenuously. Fortunately, Levi's soldiers had almost completed their training. Most of them had mastered the basic swordsmanship that Sir Fred had taught them, but the degree of mastery varied. According to Levi's proficiency panel, the skill could be divided into 3 levels. The first level was beginner, the second level was proficient, and the third level was the maximum. Only Captain Sam had trained to the maximum level among the soldiers under his command. That once cowardly young man had now genuinely grown into a man and was Fred's successor. The others were either at levels 1 or 2. This was the proper standard of an ordinary person. Because Levi had the proficiency panel, his speed was several times faster than that of an ordinary person. In short, his team of 50 people had already taken shape. The Scarlet War horses were ready, and the next step was to undergo targeted training on horseback. The horse armor forging also proceeded. After equipping his army with cavalry armor, Levi devoted himself to forging horse armor, aside from his daily breathing technique training. His forging proficiency increased rapidly day by day. As for the deal with the wild-born knight, Levi paid little attention. After all, he had money now, so he had to prioritize the supply of weapons and equipment to his territory. He would discuss this matter after ensuring he had at least 50 fully armed cavalries. Due to the wind axe special effect, Levi's forging efficiency was extraordinarily high. The blacksmith apprentices completed most of the preparatory work for him, while Levi focused on achieving the last and most technical forging work. Therefore, not long after the month of vitality arrived, the last set of the 50 sets of horse armor was completed. Forging, Level 4, 19,912, plus Level 5, Maximum. Special effect Fine Grade Certainty plus Fine Craftsmanship. Following the notification on the proficiency panel, Levi knew he had pushed his lifestyle skills to the limit. So, Level 5 is already the limit. I can be considered a blacksmith master. Levi looked at the proficiency panel. Unknowingly, he had already reached the same forging realm as the legendary blacksmith master, Flaming Hammer Hagrid Eamon. After all, it's a life skill. The proficiency panel confirms that the limit is just that. Levi opened his proficiency panel. Forging, Level 5, Maximum. Special effect, Fine Craftsmanship, Wind Axe. Fine Craftsmanship, every item you forge represents the pinnacle of the current material level. Fine Craftsmanship has replaced the initial Fine Grade Certainty. The two special effects of a maximum level forging, one represents quality, while the other represents efficiency. They complement each other perfectly. Levi was pleased as he stretched. Phew. One thing off my chest. I feel much more relaxed all of a sudden. Every time Levi reached a skill's maximum level, he felt a sense of accomplishment and relief. It was as though he was playing a game and unlocking one milestone after another. Only those who made outstanding achievements in the game could only feel this feeling. However, Levi did not enjoy freedom for too long. A few days later, after Levi had cultivated the vortex beast breathing technique, his proficiency panel showed this excellent breathing technique had reached level 1. Vortex beast breathing technique, level 1, 1/1000. Alright, that's another one. This is a happy worry. Levi smiled. After over a month, he finally mastered the bloodline breathing technique, which was even faster than the frost wolf breathing technique. This also confirmed Levi's theory. As he increased the number of breathing techniques he had mastered, the speed of his breathing technique mastery and cultivation would also increase. After practicing so many breathing techniques, Levi was highly familiar with these things. Chapter 70, Stacked Armors. Dragon Armor. Chapter 70, Stacked Armors. Dragon Armor. Taking advantage of his forging skills, Levi quickly used the scales of the earthly dragon beast and his iron rings mixed with mithril to make a set of armor for himself. The armor exuded a wild and untamed aura, which appeared extremely tough. Levi dyed the armor black, and the patterns of scales could be vaguely seen. When he wore it, the armor was much lighter and did not lack flexibility, unlike plate armor. The armor's defensive power was weaker than plate armor. In addition, unlike plate armor, This armor made of earthly dragon beast scales had a toughness that could significantly reduce the impact of blunt weapons. Let's call it dragon armor. Levi gave his armor a domineering name. I'll put on a fine iron chainmail layer on the innermost layer, then put on the dragon armor. On the outside, I'll put on a layer of thick leather armor sewn from the skin of the earthly dragon beast. In addition to my black gas defense, there will be 4 layers of layered armor. In the martial arts world, staked armor is the best. Levi wore his armor and waved Frostmourne, feeling like the world was beneath his feet. Levi also made a set for Fred. Fred was overwhelmed by the unexpected gift, and tears streamed down his face. He had barely recovered some of his strength. Although it would be difficult for him to regain the strength of a mid-level knight, he still had the power of an ordinary knight. After all, he still had the life seed and a solid foundation. If Fred had worn such a suit of armor, Iron Mountain could not have seriously injured him. This was the price of not having good equipment. The remaining scales will be kept for the 3 brothers. I'll wait for them to grow and forge armor for them. Levi was in a good mood. Besides forging armor, Levi had also successfully developed a duplicate armor-breaking crossbow based on the one he had brought back. However, the most challenging part of the task was not the crossbow but the arrowhead. The arrowheads he forged with ordinary iron would not have the armor-piercing effect he wanted. After his research as a craftsman, he found that if he wanted to achieve a solid armor-piercing effect, he had to use an even rarer material when forging the arrowhead. Luminant gold. Luminant gold was a rare metal that was even more precious than mithril. On the market, 0.5 kilograms of mithril was sold for about 100 gold coins, while 0.5 kilograms of luminant gold was sold for 200. Most importantly, mithril and luminant gold were rare metals and rarely circulated in the market. Previously, Levi had spent a lot of money to buy the mithril he needed to forge Frostmourne version 2.0. As a result, Levi abandoned the plan to mass-produce armor-breaking crossbow but did not give up. In any case, even an ordinary iron arrowhead with an armor-breaking crossbow would have considerable power. Moreover, he still had 3 luminant gold arrowheads on hand. They were all picked up from the earthly dragon beast's body and were enough to be his trump card. By the time Levi was done forging, it was already the month of Germinal. It had been 3 months since he destroyed the Bird of Death's Voice's stronghold in Icewine City. The organization probably already knew about the destruction but did not. _ILLJ. No unit lo uo next. In the shelter, Levi, who was practicing the vortex breathing technique, stood up. Some time ago, his vortex beast breathing technique had reached level 2. He felt that his physique had slightly strengthened, but there was a limit to its strength. For his current physique, the vortex beast breathing technique level 2 benefits were negligible. He must be at least at the 4th level if he wanted more apparent effects. Vortex beast breathing technique, level 2, 1000/5000. Without the secret medicine, it is slow to cultivate the breathing technique. Levi could not help but sigh. This vortex beast breathing technique was much more challenging to cultivate than the ones he developed in the past. The main reason for this was the lack of secret medicine for this breathing technique called the Turbularian secret medicine. It required materials Levi had never heard of, such as the Turbularian egg. He had sent people to the Jade Chamber of Commerce in Icewine City and consulted knowledgeable zoologists. However, no one had heard of it. Therefore, Levi had been cultivating this breathing technique himself. The effect was poor. He had only reached level 2 in 2 months. Such speed was considered godly for others but not Levi. Practicing this breathing technique also took up much time for Levi's other skills. Who knew how long it would take him to achieve the maximum level if this continued? I have to make a trip to Icewine City. Firstly, I have to check out news from the Bird of Death's Voice. Next, I must see how my breathing technique bounty commission is going. Lastly, I have to make progress on the search for Turbularian egg. Without this secret medicine, it would be a waste of time and impossible for me to push this excellent breathing technique to its limits. Continuing to waste precious time like this wasn't worth it. In the past 3 months of cultivation, besides the vortex beast breathing technique, Levi had also progressed in the other breathing techniques. However, he had mainly focused on the black snake and vortex beast breathing technique. The man-faced spider and siren breathing technique had seen little progress. However, Levi estimated that in at most 2 to 3 months, his siren breathing technique should be able to reach level 5, and the man-faced spider should not be too far off. In short, in no time, his strength would usher in another wave of more significant improvement. After explaining to Fred, Levi wore the White Wolf mask and went to the Icewine City. He first went to the Shining Tavern to see if anyone had wanted to sell him breathing techniques during this period. There was someone when he asked the staff. He was overjoyed and asked the team to help him contact the seller. Levi found a private room and drank while waiting for the seller to arrive. While waiting, he listened to all kinds of conversations in the tavern. With the help of his beginner vibrosensing, Levi's hearing was extraordinary. He could hear many whispers in the private room. From the conversations of these customers, it seemed that the Evernight Kingdom in the far north was not doing well this winter. Nearly 10,000 people had lost their homes due to the cold and the so-called snow demon disaster. They became refugees and traveled south. Among them, most died on the way. There were too many problems like hunger, disease, robbery, wild beasts, and so on. A two-people success stole the northern border of the Emerald Kingdom and Tuva Empire. The best outcome for them was to be captured by some slave-catching teams and become slaves. Some of the enslaved people that Levi bought were from the Evernight Kingdom. Their bodies were shorter and more muscular. They were terrific labor, very suitable for forging. To these people, living was tricky. To be alive was already their best dream. According to some wandering knights hired by Evernight Kingdom's great nobles to participate in a battle to eliminate the snow demons and survive, the so-called snow demons was a group of indestructible undead unafraid of death. They were covered in frost and had blue ghost fire in their empty eyes. Undead, Levi's eyes flashed. He was curious about the origins of these snow demons. Chapter 71, Chapter 71, Spirit Exorcism Manual. Chapter 71, Spirit Exorcism Manual. Soon after, someone came looking for Levi to sell his breathing techniques. "Are you the Sir White Wolf Gerald?" The person who came was a fat man with a big belly. He was not a knight. "That's right. Do you have breathing techniques for sale?" Levi asked. The plump man said cautiously, "Yes. I have a breathing technique here. I wonder how much Your Excellency White Wolf will offer." Levi asked, "That depends on the quality of your breathing technique. Is it convenient for me to take a look?" The man nodded and took out an ancient book from his pocket. It was covered in dust and some oil stains. He quickly showed it to Levi and immediately put it away. Although he had only glanced, Levi was sure he did lie about having breathing techniques. He could see only 19 tiny figures on it, and the figure in the middle of the breathing technique seemed to be a cow. It was most likely a strength-type breathing technique. It was a basic strength-based breathing technique, a garbage one, similar to the giant bear breathing technique. Levi was a little disappointed. Even if this breathing technique reached its maximum level, it would not benefit Levi's strength much. However, with the mentality that it was better than nothing, Levi still decided to buy it. Seeing Levi's sigh, the plump man seemed worried that Levi would not like his breathing technique, so he said, "Your Excellency Levi, this breathing technique is unique to the Minas family. It is precious. As a collector of breathing techniques, you should know about it." 20 gold coins, Levi said calmly. "Too low," he responded in a low voice. He could feel a terrifying aura from Levi, so he was terrified of Levi the moment he entered. He was not even a knight himself, nor did he cultivate this breathing technique passed down from his ancestors. He had always wanted to find an opportunity to sell his breathing technique for money. The new young girls in the brothel tickled his heart. Levi immediately stood up. He would pass. In any case, he did not care about this shallow breathing technique. All right, 20 gold coins. After completing the transaction, Levi took the breathing technique and looked at it carefully. Levi ridiculed, the bull breathing technique is one of those lousy ones. On the screen, the little people worshipped a wild bull the size of a house as if it was a totem. Just as he had guessed, this was a basic strength-based breathing technique. Sigh, breathing techniques are difficult to obtain. I might as well go and ask around. Who are the real collectors of breathing techniques in Icewind City? Should I steal from them? Levi had the idea of robbing them. In the end, he gave up. It was his principle not to cause trouble actively. Of course, if someone provoked him, he would not hold back. Levi posted a request to purchase Turbolarian egg at a high price in the Shining Tavern, hoping to try his luck. This was because it was in time for the monthly Shining auction. Levi also took the opportunity to participate in the wave of the auction. He did not expect to find some good items. For example, the silver scale breastplate forged by the Flaming Hammer was sold for 500 gold coins. This piece of breastplate was said to be made with a kilogram of mithril. Heh, I'm also a blacksmith master. It's a pity that I haven't made a name yet. Otherwise, it would be much easier for me to earn money. No, I have to think of a way to promote myself. The next time I trade with Wildborn Knight, I have to raise the price of the armor I forged. If he disagrees, I'll directly terminate the transaction with him. He's no longer of any use to me now. I could find a chance to get rid of him, destroy the Wild Boar gang, and take back old Toby, Levi muttered. He had endured this grudge for several years. In the auction, there was a shallow non-bloodline breathing technique, giant rhinoceros breathing technique. This was a strength-type breathing technique, and it was auctioned off at a sky-high price of 800 gold coins. Non-bloodline breathing techniques, even at the shallow level, were highly precious. Many aristocrats with ancestral bloodline breathing techniques would also fight to buy them. After all, they could be used by their subordinates to cultivate. It was the most suitable and inexpensive way to develop their forces. Not to mention that some wealthy nobles did not possess bloodline breathing techniques. They were even more eager to get it. Levi did not participate in the auction, although he wanted to. However, spending nearly 1,000 gold coins on this was not worth it. He only needed the siren breathing technique to train his subordinates. After all, they were not as powerful and would cultivate the siren breathing technique for the rest of their lives. In the end, the giant rhinoceros breathing technique was bought by a masked nobleman. After purchasing the breathing technique, he left hurriedly, worried that someone would remember him. Levi noticed that some people quietly followed him not long after the noble left. His eyes sparkled. Since there were no more items he wanted to auction, he might as well leave. He guessed that those people wanted to snatch the noble's breathing technique. If those people succeed in snatching it, I'll take it from them. If I fail, then forget it. After all, I, Levi, am not evil. Levi had a highly flexible moral bottom line. After leaving the Shining Tavern, Levi silently followed behind those people. After the noble left the place, he rode his horse and dashed out of the city. Those who harbored ill intentions quickly followed. An innocent man is guilty of holding a treasure. If that noble had bought a bloodline breathing technique like Levi, no one would have been after him. However, a non-bloodline breathing technique was a different matter. With his speed and agile movements, Levi followed behind them at a moderate pace. The strongest of these people were low-level knights, and many were not even imites. To him, they were just a group of weak chickens. The noble was not in a hurry to leave the city because in the town, With the silver hunter guards of the Earl of Silver Mountain and the deterrence of the church, no one would not cause too much trouble. But once he left, it would be different. He found a hotel and stayed for a few days. Many of the people who tried to rob them gave up. A few people were unwilling to give up and had been wandering around the hotel for the past few days. On the hotel's second floor, the noble who had obtained the breathing technique had a solemn expression under his mask. "I have to leave. Some bandits are getting impatient. Although I have the strength of a mid-level knight, it's not easy to deal with so many people. Especially the person wearing the white wolf mask at the back. He gives me the feeling that he's extremely dangerous. I get the feeling that I faced a peak knight. D***MN. This is a mission given to me by the Duke of Montenegro. He will be disappointed if I don't complete it well." The middle-aged noble had a headache. Levi was cultivating with his eyes closed in a small hotel at night. Black snake breathing technique proficiency plus 89. Levi muttered, "The black snake breathing technique is gaining experience more quickly. I should be able to become a high-level knight this year. Unfortunately, the black snake secret medicine will run out soon again. Where can I find the secret medicine? Don't tell me we have to go to the Tuva Empire." Levi had never been to the Tuva Empire. Its relationship with the Jade Kingdom was not very good. He did not know the Tuva language, so he could not communicate even if he went. "Wait, I have the proficiency panel. If I buy some Tuva books, I wonder if I can gain proficiency in the language." Although very few books introduced the Tuva language, there were still some. Just as Levi was about to practice the vortex beast breathing technique, the commotion outside made his eyes twitch. Since he had mastered beginner vibrosensing, Levi's perception had become sharper. He popped a piece of jerky into his mouth, put on the white wolf mask, stretched his muscles, and jumped out of the inn's window like a nimble wildcat. Outside the city, a middle-aged noble rode a horse and walked in the wilderness. Beside him was a wandering knight. These were mercenaries he had recruited in the Shining Tavern to protect himself. With 2 official knights, he should be safe to charge out. As long as the peak knight wearing the white wolf mask did not make a move. A cold arrow shot out, almost hitting the middle-aged noble. "Hand over the breathing technique, and you can leave." 4 knights caught up with them. Soon, a fierce battle broke out. The sound of weapons clashing could be heard. Levi hid far away and watched the battle in the distance. In the beginning, with the help of the mercenaries, the middle-aged noble could still fight evenly with the bandits with his mid-level knight cultivation. He even had the upper hand. But not long after, the middle-aged noble fell into a disadvantageous position. He had underestimated the allure of the non-bloodline breathing technique. A middle-ranked knight wearing a ghost mask also entered the battlefield. Seeing that he was about to lose, the middle-aged noble could only use his final trump card. "Everyone, stop. I'm a retainer of the Duke of Montenegro, and I'm here on orders to execute the Duke's orders. Do you know what it means to attack me?" The middle-aged noble sneered and confessed his identity. "If we kill you, who will find out?" These bandits did not buy it at all. Although the Duke of Montenegro was powerful, they were not his vassals. Wandering knights were fearless. "You guys." Suddenly, the sound of arrows whistling could be heard. Swish. In disbelief, the middle-aged noble looked at the arrow that pierced through his heart. He turned his head and looked in the direction. The white wolf mask slowly appeared. It was Levi. The middle-aged noble slowly fell to the ground. The other bandits swarmed forward, wanting to snatch the breathing technique. Levi continued to draw his bow. Arrow after arrow, under Levi's 100% accuracy, only the fully armed official knights were left. The other weaklings did not have the slightest ability to resist. Those who wanted to get their hands on breathing techniques would die the fastest. Very soon, very few people were left alive. "Who are you?" The mid-level knight wore a ghost mask and charged at Levi under the moonlight. Levi pulled out Frostmourne. Frost Wolf Seed, accelerate. Ripples broke through the void. The giant bear exploded. The opponent's longsword was sliced off, but Frostmourne's momentum did not decrease. It cut through the opponent's chainmail. Levi roared and cut the mid-level knight in half. A one-sided massacre. Soon, only Levi and the dying middle-aged noble were left alive. "Are you the Duke of Montenegro's man?" Levi asked. "That's right. You dared to attack the retainer of the Duke of Montenegro." The middle-aged noble looked at Levi and said weakly. His heart had been pierced. And he had little time left. Pucci. Frostmourne pierced through his skull. Levi drew his sword. "Yes, I've killed you." He quickly cleaned up the battlefield. He found the giant rhinoceros breathing technique he wanted on the noble's body. Other than that, there were more than 300 gold coins and an ancient parchment that did not look like a breathing technique inheritance diagram. On it were all kinds of complicated hand seals. Spirit exorcism manual. Levi glanced at it briefly, and then his breathing quickened. This is AF *ing surprise. Chapter 72, Chapter 72, Return of the Dark Wave. Chapter 72, Return of the Dark Wave. However, although he was pleasantly surprised, it was not a good place to stay. Levi found more than 10 gold coins on the other ghost face mask. This was a feeble man who looked like he was a wandering knight. As a mid-level knight, he only had so little cash on him. How embarrassing. In the end, Levi had a total of 400 gold coins. Like a horse can't be fat without grass at night, a man can't be rich without external wealth. Only now did Levi realize that forging and farming were nothing compared to robbery. "I can't go overboard. There are too many robberies. Sooner or later, there will be a day when they get abused." Levi could not afford to waste their weapons and equipment, so he tied them up and carried them on his back. "I didn't want to do it myself, but since you're the Duke of Montenegro's man," Levi muttered. He rode the middle-aged noble's horse and headed toward the Bird of Death's Voice's stronghold. He sneaked into the stronghold and found that it had been abandoned. Now, there was no one inside. It was gloomy. "I wonder what the Bird of Death's Voice plans to do next. Are they sending out Grand Knights? Would they send an assassin at the level of the 5 shadows to assassinate me?" Levi did not know. He avoided the darkness and rode away from Icewind City. The harvest, this time, far exceeded his expectations. He had only thought he could buy a breathing technique, but in the end, he received a surprise. Compared to this pleasant surprise, the giant rhinoceros breathing technique and the raging bull breathing technique were not worth mentioning. After returning safely to Blackwater Valley, Levi threw the weapons and equipment to the forging department. He could not wait to return to the shelter and study the soul exorcism manual. In the old manual, the words were written. "When the people of this world live under the holy light of the Heavenly Father and enjoy the blessings of God, our family, however, is in the shadows, fighting against those terrifying existences that people only think of as legends. We have never stopped fistins. Since the first year of the Holy Brilliance, the once distant dark wave has gradually returned. Unfortunately, only our 4 great families know the truth of this matter. The ancestors of our 4 great families once spoke to the Church, hoping that the Church would reveal the truth to the public, and begged the gods to let those people return to fight against the coming dark wave. However, the Church treated our ancestors as the descendants of the fallen wizards who created panic. From then on, we could only live in darkness. However, I knew there would be a day when the surging dark wave would sweep across this continent, and the multidimensional plane would overlap with our world. The terrifying existences from other planes that terrified the Church and the gods would make a comeback. The world had the right to know the truth. The Church could not hide the fact forever. When more people realized the evil spirit existed, the church would regret its actions. And the ones who could save all of this were not the gods trapped in the astral world, nor were they the churches who did nothing and chased after fame and fortune. The group of people had been forced to exile themselves to the realm of the unbelievers before the first year of holy brilliance. The wizards. I, Mon Winchester, the last spirit exorcist of the Winchester family, and my good friend Dean Constantine, the previous exorcist of the Constantine family, were unfortunately trapped here when we joined forces to kill an item of the monotide from another dimension. My good friend has passed away, and I know my days are numbered. Before we set off, our descendants were still in their infancy. I inherited my old friend's last wish. I passed down my lifelong cultivation and comprehension of the four seals, the seal of flame and the seal of hell of the Constantine family, as well as the seal of protection and the seal of dragon might of the Winchester family. If you can pick it up, please give it to anyone with the Winchester or Constantine surnames. You will receive wealth beyond your imagination. Otherwise, this item is no more than a waste to you. Remember. From Mon Winchester, year 864 of Holy Brilliance calendar, month of warmth. Levi quietly read the contents of the diary word by word. The amount of information on this small piece of parchment was enormous. First of all, this doesn't seem to be the wizard inheritance that I imagined, but the inheritance of some wizard's bloodline descendants. What was recorded in this manual were not spells but seals. It was an ability that could be activated by the bloodline and spell-casting materials of the bloodline descendants without the need to construct a spell model through meditation. It was almost a weak version of a spell and could not even be considered a cantrip. However, from the description of the owner of this manual, if the seals were cultivated to the highest realm, their powers would be more substantial than a cantrip and not weaker than ordinary official spells. Secondly, the diary owner mentioned that the mysterious force known as the Dark Wave had begun to revive on this continent 1,000 years ago. However, the process of revival was extremely long. Creatures like evil spirits were abnormal existences born in the human world from the Dark Wave's return, and this was only a precursor to the return of the Dark Wave. Evil spirits were the weakest of the Dark Wave. What was genuinely terrifying were those terrifying existences that came directly from other planes through the intersection of planes. There was no lack of facts that could fight against the gods of the astral plane. Gods most likely also existed, but they exist in a magical place called the astral world, a chaotic land formed by the projection of pure spiritual power. The gods lived in the astral world for eternity but were imprisoned by the astral world and could not descend to the real world. They could only use the bridges built by some believers in the mortal world, such as organizations like the Church, to temporarily send a bit of divine power to interfere with the real world. And the carrier of the human world that could carry the divine power of the gods was called saint. Finally, wizards did exist but disappeared long before historical records. They had gone to a place called the realm of the unbelievers. From the description of the owner of this notebook, it was a place where the power of the gods of the astral world could not penetrate. This place was a subspace independent of the world they lived in. It was a utopia for wizards. It might be right beside them, but they could not see it. Its entrance could be a nameless alley, an empty hut in the forest, an abandoned wardrobe, a cave at the bottom of the lake, an ancient mirror, or even a fairy tale book. Some ordinary things that mortals looked at could become the medium of reality at the entrance to the subspace. To enter such a place, an official wizard was needed as a guide. The four great spirit exorcism families, the Winchester family, the Constantine family, the Van Helsing family, and the Duncan family, are the descendants of the four powerful wizards in the human world. They are responsible for clearing out some of the demon waves in the mortal world, such as evil spirits. They are also responsible for finding some mortals with wizard qualifications in the human world and contacting official wizards in the realm of the unbelievers to take them away. Unfortunately, the monster killer Duncan family and the blood kindred killer Van Helsing family had completely disappeared 500 years ago, and there was no news. As for the spirit exorcist Winchester family and the exorcist Constantine family, it was unknown if they still had descendants, Levi muttered. The road ahead was now relatively straightforward. Looking directly for those mysterious wizards, such as Witch Gullwig and Ms. Rowland, was impossible. The only ones that were relatively easy to find were the descendants of the four great families. The last inheritors of the Winchester and Constantine families had appeared more than 100 years ago. Levi felt that the possibility of their descendants still alive was relatively high. Finally, after confirming his direction, Levi was in a good mood. He turned his attention to the manual that recorded the cultivation methods of the four seals. Since the proficiency panel can ignore the bloodline curse of knights and learn bloodline breathing techniques, there should be no problem cultivating these seals, right? Chapter 73, Chapter 73, Four Great Seals. Chapter 73, Four Great Seals. Until now, Levi had practiced so many bloodline breathing techniques and had been fine. If there were signs of the opposite, he would immediately stop cultivating. Everything was normal until now. It should be the hidden function of the proficiency panel. Levi planned to master all the seals on the book before giving it to the descendants of the Winchester or Constantine family. Of the four great seals, the Constantine family had the seal of flames and the seal of hell. The seal of flame could shoot out a scorching flame from the palm. The strength of the flame flow was related to two factors. One was the density of one's lineage. The thicker the lineage, the stronger the flames. The Constantine family's bloodline had gradually thinned over the generations, so the power of the fire had decreased with each age. They tried to avoid this by marrying close relatives until a group of deformed children were born. The family accepted the fact that it could not be changed. Another factor that determined the strength of the flame was the depth of one's cultivation. The higher the cultivation level, the more ether power could be mobilized through the seal and the stronger the flame flow. In essence, the seal was a weaker version of a spell. The seal of flames was a low-level version of the first ring spell, Burning Palm. Meanwhile, the seal of hell was a low-level version of the first ring spell, Undead Summoning. The latter could summon powerful undead from another dimension, while the former could only resurrect corpses. This summoned creature was also known as the Living Dead. Its combat power depended on the strength of the corpse when it was alive, but its strength was lower than the living being. However, it was perfect as cannon fodder. The Winchester family's seal of protection was a weaker version of the first ring spell, Shield. It could form a protective force field around the body and strongly resist physical attacks. It could also block attacks from creatures like evil spirits. The last seal of dragon might was the Winchester family's seal used for attacks. It could only be cast with the blood of a dragon. It did not matter if it was a pure-blooded dragon, a sub-dragon, or a mixed-blood dragon. The purer the bloodline, the more powerful it was. However, the Winchester family usually used the blood of earthly dragon beasts, which were not considered mixed-blood dragons. It was shocking that they were still able to utilize the seal. Based on this, the Winchester family concluded that the earthly dragon beasts were probably the descendants of some mixed-blood dragons and mortal creatures from a long time ago. The earthly dragon beast blood was not very precious, and its production was much higher than ambergris. Levi had plenty of it. The seal of dragon might was a spiritual attack that could shock the enemy's mind and even directly attack the body of an imaginary creature like an evil spirit. It was the Winchester family's trump card, so their family was also known as the Spirit Exorcist family. Other than the Constantine family, the four great families had their specialties: evil spirits, monsters, and vampires. The Constantine family was more versatile and could participate in anything. Flame flow, hell, protection, dragon's might. Which one should I learn first? Levi muttered. Forget it, I'll learn them all. Then, I'll focus on whichever casting material is easier to collect. Levi immediately started to study hand gestures and cultivation techniques for Seals. It's a pity that there's no meditation technique in the spirit exorcism manual. If there was, I might be able to try practicing meditation techniques first to prepare to become a wizard. Although Levi had yet to become a wizard, from the various information he had collected and the descriptions in the spirit exorcism manual, the three main foundations of wizard cultivation were meditation, which could train a wizard's spiritual power, and ether power, which was the source of energy for wizards to cast spells. Casting materials were the medium for wizards to cast spells. Not all seals needed casting materials. The third was the spell model, the foundation for mastering spells. The CPU processor transformed the power of ether into various spells. However, Levi was already delighted to be able to obtain the seal. He immediately began to study the hand gestures of the four great hand seals. From the initial awkwardness to the slight familiarity, Levi gradually understood everything. The knowledge regarding cultivating the four great seals was imprinted into his mind as time passed. Levi cultivated without rest or food. It was only when he was awakened by hunger that he realized that he had unknowingly been immersed in the cultivation of the seal for an entire day. He opened the proficiency panel, but there was not a single seal that he had learned yet. Looks like it's not enough. Perhaps, if I want to record it on the proficiency panel, I must use the casting materials and complete a successful casting. Otherwise, no matter how familiar I am with the hand seal, it won't be a successful casting, Levi muttered. He stood up and stretched his muscles. He planned to get his subordinates to collect the casting materials for him. So far, among the casting materials of the four great seals, from Levi's current perspective, he felt that the only one that could be collected was the seal of flames. Sulfur powder, a charcoal powder made from black dragon wood, and bone ash from a 100-year-old tomb. Magic gunpowder from another world. Levi found it a little funny. Gunpowder technology had not been invented, perhaps because saltpeter had not been discovered and refined yet. Levi had embarrassed the transmigrators by making explosives a necessary skill for transmigrators. As for the seal of draconic might, apart from the earthly dragon beast's blood, it also required something called evil spirit dust, which was the powder left behind by dead evil spirits. The problem was that Levi had never seen an evil spirit other than Naiad. Whether he could defeat it was still a question, even if he encountered one. He could not obtain the evil spirit dust. If I could kill evil spirits with my bare hands, why would I need the seal of dragon might? Levi was speechless. The seal of hell required the core of the undead, only undead creatures could produce. Levi had never heard of undead creatures before, though he had an idea. The snow demon appeared in the Evernight Kingdom in the far north. From the descriptions of the wandering knights lucky enough to return, the snow demon was most likely an undead creature. The seal of protection that Levi, a fan of the stacked armor style, wanted the most required pyroxene, a material similar to mithril and luminant gold, both products of meteorites from outer space. However, pyroxene was rarer than the two, so Levi had never heard of it. Without any materials, Levi could only temporarily put aside the seals and continue cultivating breathing techniques. A few days later, the materials for the seal of flames were finally ready, and Levi could finally try casting it. Chapter 74, Orange Red Flame, Tier 5 Sea Demon. Chapter 74, Orange Red Flame, Tier 5 Sea Demon. Levi followed the recipe in the manual and completed the matching of the casting materials. Then, he put on the special iron gloves he had made, grabbed a small handful of casting materials, and placed them in his palm. Then, the hand seals changed, and Levi's hand seals were completed. He softly chanted the corresponding incantation and struck out with his palm. Pst! The casting materials were scattered all over the ground. Levi did not even see a spark, let alone a stream of flames. Can't I wear gloves? But what if I accidentally burn myself? Levi did not know if the seal would affect the caster, so he hesitated momentarily. Then I'll try wrapping my palm with black gas. Next, Levi's palm was filled with black snake energy. Now that Levi was a mid-level knight, the thickness of the black energy was different from before. It was common for him to snatch a white blade with his bare hands. Then, Levi made another hand seal and chanted the incantation again. The next moment, there was a hiss. It was as if he had ignited the fuse of gunpowder. Levi could vaguely feel a power from heaven and earth pouring into his head, arm, and then through his palm, causing the casting materials to burn and spurt out instantly. A foot-long stream of flame shot out from Levi's palm, emitting a red light like an electric welding machine. Moreover, Levi could feel that even if he did not use the black gas to protect his palm, the high temperature of the flames would not hurt his palm. Soon, the flame was extinguished. There was still a hint of warmth in the air. It's a success. From today onwards, I can be considered half a wizard. He quickly opened the proficiency panel. Sure enough, as he saw, a new skill appeared on the proficiency panel. Seal of Flame, Level 1, 1/1000. Ha 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 ha. Levi laughed loudly. As expected, the proficiency panel showed that he could even cultivate seals that required the bloodline of a wizard. Next to work on is the seal's proficiency level. The casting materials required for the Seal of Flames are not expensive. I'll set a small goal, to cultivate the seal to level 3 by the end of the year. Levi used the Seal of Flame to spray a stream of flames that swept across the ground, charring it black. The power of these flames was still extreme, but Levi's current attack range was too small, and the duration was too short. Unless it was close combat, it was tough to hurt people. Moreover, according to the manual, the Seal of Flame sped out 5 types of flames. The temperatures ranged from low to high. There were orange-red flames, yellow-white flames, azure-blue flames, purple flames, and colorless flames, which were of the highest realm. It was rumored that if one reached the realm of colorless flames, the power of the Seal of Flame was not inferior to that of an official wizard using the first ring spell Burning Palm. Levi practiced the Seal of Flames happily. He did not feel the pinch since the materials were easy to get. Levi's men had been robbing tombs for quite some time to obtain bone ash that was more than 100 years old. As for the casting materials for the other 3 seals, Levi had issued a commission in the Shining Tavern under different identities. Although he knew there was a high chance he would not get them, what if he got lucky? Blackwater Valley's cavalry construction was also full swing on the territory. The cavalry trained in a valley basin that Levi had carefully chosen to avoid being discovered by potential enemies. It was located in the hinterland of the Montenegro mountain range and was rarely visited by humans. The forging industry in the territory was also flourishing. To feed so many cavalrymen, the daily expenses were not small. As the saying goes, soldiers are trained for 1,000 days and employed momentarily. This was unavoidable. As for diplomacy, 2 of Levi's neighbors, Silver Fox Baron of Silver Moon Territory, seemed to be doing a lot of construction within their territory. Moreover, they were very close to the church and had already become their vassal force. Abraham's new church was also completed. With the support of a large amount of manpower, material resources, and financial resources, a magnificent church rose from the ground. On the day of the official opening, Levi sent someone to send a congratulatory gift to Abraham. This made Abraham very happy and gave Levi a holy light blessing. Levi sneered in his heart. Although his current strength was not enough to resist the church, it was still easy for him to find an opportunity to kill Abraham and his knight Glimmer without anyone noticing. However, he had not done so yet. Not only had he not taken revenge, but he also expressed goodwill to the church. Other than not agreeing to his request to sell the land, he had satisfied everything else. For example, he even donated 100 gold coins to the church in his name. When the church needed labor, he even let some serfs in his territory help build the church for free. This made Abraham feel that Levi was very sensible. He believed the Blackwater Valley would belong to the church sooner or later. He wanted to obtain the Blackwater Valley so much because he had received a treasure map by chance. The treasure map showed that the treasure was in the Blackwater Valley. After reading the historical records, he found that the Blackwater Valley was the former Mellon family's fief, so the treasure map must be the Mellon family's treasure map. The Mellon family had a special meaning to the church. His intuition told him that the Blackwater Valley might have hidden the treasures and secrets of the Mellon family. However, if he did not become the Lord of Blackwater Valley, he would not be able to mobilize a large workforce and resources to search for them. However, Abraham was very patient. From his point of view, Levi's current goodwill toward the church meant that Levi was not doing well. There was a high chance he wanted to curry favor with him so that Blackwater Valley could sell for a reasonable price. Therefore, Abraham got the church branch in Icewind City to advance his plot to bestow Levi with a chapter of divine brilliance that could exorcise evil spirits. This badge was said to be the second generation of the previous badge of holy light and was even more potent against evil spirits. In Abraham's words, although this badge was made of iron, it was more precious than gold. This was the recognition of the church's loyalty to the Lord. Naturally, Levi was profoundly grateful and immediately paid this year's tax. Holding a small bag of heavy gold, the smile on Abraham's face widened. Thinking of Abraham, the horrible man, calling him brother, Levi's lips curled into a strange smile. The church, this money tree, was about to start earning money, so he would let the old dog be smug for a while longer. During the year 1008 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, the month of flowers, Levi opened his eyes in the shelter. On the surface of his heart, the black snake species raised its head arrogantly in the posture of a king. The frost wolf seed, the giant bear seed, the siren seed, and the man-faced spider seed were all prostrating beneath it. Among them, the siren seed was much more significant than before. The siren breathing technique has reached the 5th level. Chapter 75, Chapter 75, Breathing Technique Fusion. Chapter 75, Breathing Technique Fusion. Siren Breathing Technique, Level 5, Maximum, Special Effect, Intermediate. Speed, Bone Shrinking Transformation. So, the 5th level is the limit of the siren breathing technique. Levi felt the black gas from the siren seed entering his limbs. He quickly punched out. His fists were like phantoms, and each punch carried wind. Then, with a whip kick, the air seemed to crackle. My attack speed has increased quite a bit. Let's go test my running speed. Levi came to the venue where he had tested himself before. His entire body tensed up, and his back arched slightly like a cheetah with its eyes on an antelope. Then, with a bang, the black gas from the siren seed and the frost wolf seed burst out from his legs and core area. Levi turned into a blur. His current speed was much faster. 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. In just 4 seconds, Levi had reached the finish line. Beginner speed is 100 meters in 5 seconds, intermediate speed is 100 meters in 4 seconds. It may seem like it's only reduced by 1 second, but it's a qualitative leap. The process of cultivating the breathing technique is to continuously transform the body and use the black gas to repeatedly break through the limits of the human body. Every second, even a millisecond, of progress is crucial. Levi panted slightly, feeling satisfied. The cheetah's fastest speed was less than 3 seconds for 100 meters. As long as his speed improved, he would be comparable to the king of sprinting in his previous life, the cheetah. 100 meters in 3 seconds was too fast for a mortal's eyes to capture. They could only see the afterimages of the cheetah's limbs. Other than the siren breathing technique during this cultivation period, the greatest breakthrough was the Seal of Flame. Seal of Flame, Level 1, 300/1000. Although he was still at Level 1, Levi's hand-forming speed had increased after a period of practice. This meant that his spellcasting speed had also increased. As his proficiency increased, his compatibility with the mysterious ether power in the world also increased. With every improvement in spellcasting, the scale of the flame flow expanded. Levi arrived in front of a large tree about a meter away from him. Then, he slapped his palm in the air, and a flame stream about a meter long gushed out like lava. The high temperature exploded. Boom! Half of the thick tree trunk was charred in the next moment. Levi turned it into ashes with a touch. The air was filled with the smell of sulfur. Levi blew out the white smoke in his palm. If the people from the church had discovered my attack, they would have thought I was a wizard. Therefore, this is my trump card. I can't let anyone know about it. Anyone who has seen this move of mine must be dead. Although Winchester said that since the first year of Holy Brilliance, the connection between the gods and the church has been decreasing, and there has been no miracle in the past 1,000 years, the foundation that the church has accumulated over thousands of years is still not something that a half-experienced exorcist like me can compare to. Even those powerful and mysterious wizards can only hide in the realm of the unbelievers to avoid being watched by the gods. With the gods around, I have to be even more low-key and cautious, Levi kept reminding himself. However, his strength was different now that he possessed the seal of flame. My hands are itching. I wonder if I can fight a Grand Knight now. No, I can't have such dangerous thoughts. It's more suitable for me to crush the opponent. Before the Duke of Montenegro and the Bird of Death's voice find trouble with me, I'll continue to develop quietly. It won't be too late to settle the score when I become a Grand Knight. It had been more than 8 years since the 1000th year of the Holy Brilliance calendar. He had also grown from a 10-year-old child to an 18-year-old adult. After reaching 1.9 meters tall, he grew very slowly. Although his body size was wildly exaggerated, many strength-type knights were even more outsized than him. The Black Snake secret medicine is almost gone. I've only reached 1/3 of the 5th level, and I must worry about ambergris again. Black Snake breathing technique, level 5. 8123/30,000, special effect. Vortex Beast breathing technique, level 2, 1000/5000, giant rhinoceros breathing technique, level 3, 1011/10,000, raging bull breathing technique, level 3, 3233/10,000. Man-faced spider breathing technique, level 4, 12333/20,000. Special effect, beginner vibrosensing, spider sensing. Siren breathing technique, level 5, maximum, special effect, intermediate speed, bone shrinking transformation. Frost wolf breathing technique, level 4, limit. Special effect, beginner. Speed, can be fused. I have 8 types of breathing techniques, Levi could not help but exclaim. Suddenly, he noticed a new option in the special effects section of the Frost Wolf breathing technique. With a thought, he clicked on the option can be fused. Do you wish to merge the Frost Wolf breathing technique into the Siren breathing technique? After merging, Frost Wolf breathing technique will disappear, while Siren breathing technique's quality will increase slightly. When its quality reaches a certain level, Siren breathing technique will break through its limit. Note, the current fusion is limited to the fusion of the same type of skill. Note, the fusion will consume a certain amount of mental and physical strength. Please ensure that the fusion is done safely. This was possible. What should I do with the life seed after I merge with it? Will it improve me greatly? Levi muttered. However, the proficiency panel only gave a mechanical prompt and no follow-up. Forget it, I'll give it a try. This Frost Wolf breathing technique is too trashy, and its special effects overlap with Sirens. Let's fuse them. After Levi prepared all kinds of food and water, he began the fusion in the shelter. At the same time, Levi noticed something. The frost wolf seed and siren seed in his heart started to move. Like a world-destroying demon, the siren seed waved its 8 twisting tentacles wildly, tightly binding the frost wolf seed. The frost wolf's body kept shrinking. Ultimately, the frost wolf disappeared in an extremely unwilling and aggrieved mood. The siren seed stretched its tentacles comfortably, looking satisfied after eating its fill. It also became fearless when facing the man-faced spiders it had been afraid of. However, the siren seed prostrated before the black snake seed circling high above. It recognized its status in the family. "I feel like these life seeds are alive," Levi said. He opened the proficiency panel again, and the frost wolf breathing technique had disappeared. The siren breathing technique had also changed. Siren breathing technique, level 5, maximum, breakthrough available, current progress 1/3, special effect, intermediate speed, bone shrinking transformation. A frost wolf breathing technique at the limit of the 4th level can only increase the breakthrough progress by 1 point. In other words, I still need 2 speed-type breathing techniques at the limit of the 4th level to break the limit. That's so cunning, Levi could not help but curse. D*MN, the proficiency panel. In his previous life, he had completely understood the tricks of some pay-to-win online games. According to the nature of the system, as the quality of the breathing technique becomes higher and higher in the future, the number of powerful breathing techniques needed to break the limit will also increase. At the moment, it was not very useful. However, this would be very useful if Levi needed to break through the restrictions and upgrade to perfect or legendary breathing techniques. After all, perfect and legendary breathing techniques could only be encountered by luck. Levi did not expect to obtain them at all. However, he could collect a large number of shallow and excellent grades. As long as he learned enough breathing techniques, he would eventually be able to master them. Then he could create a legendary breathing technique himself. Perhaps even beyond legendary. Chapter 76, Chapter 76, Golden Warhammer Tyra. Chapter 76, Golden Warhammer Tyra. During this period, Levi's other breathing techniques also improved. Especially the newly acquired Giant Rhinoceros breathing technique and Raging Bull breathing technique, both of which were at the 3rd level. Of the 2 breathing techniques, the Raging Bull breathing technique and the Giant Bear breathing technique were about the same. According to Levi's judgment, based on the diagram, he could only cultivate it to the 4th level. As for the Giant Rhinoceros breathing technique, which was a non-bloodline breathing technique, it had 24 tiny figures on it. According to Levi's speculation, it should be able to be cultivated to the 5th level, which was about the same level as the Siren breathing technique. The Vortex Beast breathing technique was the slowest progress, which had only broken through to the 2nd level. Even the most trashy breathing technique of such excellent quality was far more complicated than Frost Wolf and Giant Bear. Of course, the most important reason was that he lacked the Turbularian secret medicine. Levi had to simultaneously take care of the Black Snake, Vortex Beast, Man-Faced Spider, Giant Rhinoceros, Raging Bull breathing techniques, and Golden Cross Slash. He was swamped. As for the Seal of Flames, he would only gather enough casting materials and focus on them then. He was less concerned about cultivating seals. Although it was tiring to live like this, the increase in strength brought by each breakthrough and the breaking of the limits of the human body made Levi genuinely intoxicated. As the Golden Cross Slash was not far from breaking through, Levi had specially taken a portion of the time he spent cultivating the breathing technique to allow the Golden Cross Slash to break through to level 5, and the special effect, Elementary Ripple, had become Intermediate Ripple. This allowed his strength to increase by another wave. After so many accumulations, Levi could no longer figure out his strength. Since Sir Fred was injured, no one in the territory could fight with Levi. Levi could only keep sparring with the 3 brothers. Now, with his eyes closed, he could play with the 3 brothers in the palm of his hand with his enhanced intermediate speed and beginner vibrosensing. It was not that the three brothers were too weak. Any of them had the strength of a low-level knight or even more remarkable. If they joined forces, even a middle-level knight would not be able to defeat them. Only a high-level knight could barely tie with them. The problem was that when Levi was a low-level knight, he could already defeat Iron Mountain, a high-level knight who practiced two breathing techniques. Now that he was a mid-level knight, he had many level 5 skills, including the Seal of Flames. In addition, he had a complete grasp of the three brothers' attacks to deal with them quickly. All in all, Levi's strength had been stacked to a terrifying level. It was just that he was too low-key and had never had the chance to show it. Originally, Levi wanted to find an opportunity to kill Abraham. However, after thinking about it, killing Abraham now would be a loss. The church had already been built, and the range of its radiation was not limited to places like Blackwater Valley, Frostwind Territory, Rock Hill, and Silver Moon Territory. In the northern region, there were many territories that the Church of Icewind City could not reach and some gathering places in the wilderness. They would all be the targets of Abraham's wealth. The means of accumulating wealth were donations from the nobles, taxes, momjances, and a usury. It could be foreseen that the church's profits would only increase. Old dog, go on. The more you earn, the better. The taxes I pay you will be my savings. I will get it back sooner or later. He had already established a close relationship with Abraham, and even the church branch in Icewind City knew that Levi, a generous lord, had donated a lot of money and labor to the church. He had indirectly invested in the church's construction and considered himself a shareholder. He wanted to wait until the church was rich enough to change his identity. Then, he would snatch back everything Abraham had painstakingly built personally. Next, he would kill him to vent his anger and compensate for losing gold coins. At that time, the church would find it challenging to think that he was the one who did it. Levi planned happily. During the year 1008 Holy Brilliance calendar, month of flowing fire, everything in the territory operated orderly. Levi also kept asking about the changes in the outside world through the informants he had arranged in the Shining Tavern. The Bird of Death's voice was still silent. It had been so long since Iron Mountain had tried to assassinate him, but they had not sent any more potent assassins to assassinate Levi. They must have given up. There was no further investigation into the murderer who destroyed the Bird of Death's voice stronghold. After all, everyone in the defense died that day and was burned. The murderer did not leave anything behind, so how could they investigate? However, Levi did not let down his guard. This organization, still lingering around, could make a comeback anytime. He had to be on high alert. There was no news from the Duke of Montenegro either. After all, he was a Grand Duke at the top of the pyramid. He was busy every day. After many failed assassinations, he was either busy with other matters or forgot about planning a scheme that could kill Levi. In short, the current situation was as calm as stagnant water. Although it had been very peaceful during this period, Levi was not used to it. He felt that this was the last calm before the storm. He had this intuition since he dealt with the Wild Boar Knight. A few years ago, the Wild Boar Knight would personally go to trade, and if Levi did not deliver enough, he would complain. However, this year, the ones who traded with Levi and the others were the subordinates of the Wild Boar Knight. This meant he was probably too busy to care about a small supplier like Levi. Judging from his subordinates' complacent expressions, perhaps the Wilderness Brotherhood had already accumulated enough strength and was just short of an opportunity to rise, Levi guessed. However, I already have a certain amount of power to protect myself. After all these years of development, Blackwater Valley's financial income was enough to support Levi's shops, military expenses, and the money that Levi had robbed. All in all, there were no financial woes. The 50-man fully armed cavalry team had also taken shape. In addition, the part-time militia team serving the cavalry had also expanded a little. The population of Levi's territory had also increased a lot, and the source was the serf market. Due to the extreme cold and the disaster of the snow demons, the refugees in the far north had moved south, causing the price of serfs to drop in recent years. Levi took the opportunity to buy a lot of them. His castle was even sturdier than before, and it was even equipped with an armor-breaking crossbow. As for the three brothers, they were getting stronger. In a few years, Levi could forge armor for the three brothers and make them absolute killing weapons on the battlefield. Like that, in a state of indifference, Blackwater Valley's overall and Levi's strengths were growing healthily and steadily. While Levi was cultivating, he upgraded his equipment set to version 3.0 after becoming a blacksmith master. He also began to forge blacksmith master level armor, weapons, and crossbows. This equipment would equip his army. He strove to let everyone in his army use the best equipment. At the end of the month of the furnace, with the unique effect of wind axe, Levi and the blacksmiths had a surplus of weapons. He took the blacksmith master knight's longsword that he had personally forged and left the Blackwater Valley under cover of the night, heading towards Icewind City. Now that he was strong enough, making a name for himself as a blacksmith master was time. He might be the only blacksmith master of this era. He had even thought of the name and title. Golden Warhammer Tyra. Chapter 77, Chapter 77, Pyro-Acasine. Chapter 77, Pyro-Acasine. Levi arrived at the Jade Chamber of Commerce in the year 1008 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, the end of the month of the furnace, within the Icewind City. "Do you have ambergris?" Levi asked. The ambergris he had previously obtained was almost used up. He needed to replenish it to advance to a high-level knight the following year. Therefore, whenever he came to the Icewind City, he asked the Jade Chamber of Commerce if they had ambergris. "No, don't bother asking within the next few years. Buying ambergris in the entire Emerald Kingdom, let alone in Icewind City, is difficult. The price of a bottle of ambergris on the black market has already risen to 300 gold coins. The problem is that there's no stock at all. We want to make money too." The boss had a helpless expression. Levi was puzzled. Had the D*Ned Whitehorse Knight not broken through to legendary level yet? Wasn't there a rumor that the breakthrough failed? How many years has it been? With so much ambergris given to me, I might have already broken through to legendary level. However, despite his complaints, he did not dare to find trouble with the legendary figure of the royal family. The Whitehorse Knight's popularity in the Emerald Kingdom was only second to the Pope and the King. It even surpassed the old aristocrats like the Montenegro Knight. He was indeed a figure standing at the peak of the knight's status. There were even rumors that the old king might break the iron law of the eldest son's inheritance system for the sake of Whitehorse Knight. He would make an exception and pass the throne to his youngest son, Whitehorse Knight, who might become a legendary knight. He would use the prestige and strength of the legendary knight to ensure the long-term stability of his kingdom, deter the ambitious nobles and alien races, and get rid of the control of the church. "Then do you have these materials here?" Levi handed over a list of materials that he had prepared. The materials list included the materials Levi needed, the Turbolarian eggs, and even the breathing technique inheritance map. In short, there was everything. However, he did not have much hope. These materials were too rare. Sure enough, the boss shook his head after seeing it. "We don't have the breathing technique inheritance diagram, as the big bosses of the Chamber of Commerce don't allow us to sell such a thing. The other materials are not a problem. We still have some Earth Dragon blood and a small piece of mithril, but the Earl of Silver Mountain has reserved it. We don't have any luminant gold. We haven't heard of the evil spirit dust, core of the undead, or Turbolarian egg. And finally, pyroxene. What is this?" the boss asked confusedly. "Well, as the name suggests, it's probably a shimmering stone, like a meteorite that fell from the sky. Levi did not expect that even the Jade Chamber of Commerce boss had never heard of pyroxene. It seemed that this casting material was unpopular. I do have some glowing stones here. They also fell from the sky. They're called nightstone. Let me take a look. Levi's heart skipped a beat. The boss asked his men to look around and finally took out a stone the size of a human head covered in dust. He wiped the dust with a cloth, and the stone's surface emitted a faint list. The light was even more apparent after the boss closed the door and window. The color was like the glow of fireflies. This is the nightstone. It's the closest to the pyroxene you mentioned. It's a collection passed down by a noble. If you want it, take it for 200 gold coins, said the boss indifferently. It's too expensive, 100 gold colds. The boss called the servants over and asked in a low voice, how much is the price of this nightstone? The servant whispered, 20 gold coins. Then, the boss walked out and coughed. 100 it is. I'll sell it at the cost price. This is a friendship price. Levi's hearing was excellent, and with his beginner vibrosensing, he could hear his whispers in the other room. He thought he still was poor at bargaining. He should have known that there was no unified market price, whether it was nightstone or pyroxene. However, he still bought it for 100 gold coins because this stone the size of a human head was the pyroxene he needed. Give me some earth dragon blood to go along with it. This thing is so ancient. If not me, you wouldn't be able to sell it, Levi said calmly. At the same time, he inadvertently emitted the aura of a mid-level knight. The boss, who was about to refuse, changed his expression. He was also a low-level knight and knew Levi was an expert. All right, are you a wandering knight? I wonder if you want to join my Jade Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce lacked powerful mercenaries the most, and they hoped to recruit powerful mercenaries like Levi to protect the caravan. I won't consider it for the time being. Levi declined. Then, he carried the pyroxene and earth dragon blood wrapped in sackcloth and left. He then went to the library in Icewine City and bought some books that introduced the local customs and language of the Tuva Empire. Then, he arrived at the usual place, the Shining Tavern. He ordered a glass of blood wine to commemorate the Blood Knights. The scarlet wine slid down his throat. Levi smelled the familiar smell of the tavern. As usual, he first asked about breathing techniques. Recently, no one had come to sell breathing techniques, let alone the giant breathing technique that Levi had considered. As for Levi's other requests, such as the Turbolarian egg and the evil spirit dust, he had no news. He was not too disappointed. If rare materials were so easy to find, they would not be rare. Moreover, it was already a pleasant surprise for him to obtain a human head-sized pyroxene during his trip to Icewine City. That was enough for him to use for a long time. After all, the seal of protection only needed a fingernail-sized powder. Levi's most important goal in coming to the Icewine City this time was to make the first shot on his path as a blacksmith master. He went straight to where the auction was entrusted and took out the masterpiece he had carefully selected. It was a knight's longsword made of ordinary refined iron. However, this knight's longsword was not ordinary. It represented the highest quality of longswords that could be forged with the materials of this era. Therefore, the moment he took it out, the texture, appearance, and artistry immediately attracted the eyes of the appraiser from the shining auction house. This time, Levi wore a golden mask. He quietly watched as the appraiser flipped the longsword he had forged repeatedly. Ultimately, the appraiser found a knight's longsword forged from flaming hammer from the auction's collection. He compared the two swords together for a long time. During this period, several experienced blacksmiths were invited over. In the end, these people were shocked to find that the longsword provided by the man with the golden mask was almost as good as the one forged by the legendary blacksmith, Flaming Hammer Hagrid, in artistry and skill. Only the style of the two was slightly different. "Sir, did you forge this sword yourself? May I ask for your name?" the appraiser of the auction house asked in an agitated voice. "Of course, I forged it. My name? Golden Warhammer." Chapter 78, Chapter 78, Large Sums. Chapter 78, Large Sums. Golden Warhammer Terra. The appraiser and blacksmiths looked at each other. They had never heard of such a person. As a blacksmith master, he must not be so unknown if he could advance to such a level. However, they confirmed with each other's eyes that it was indeed someone they had never heard of before. "Sir Tyra, are you going to auction off this master-level knight's longsword that you spent countless efforts to forge?" the president of the shining auction house asked respectfully. Not only was Sir Tyra's forging technique superb, but his strength was also not to be underestimated. He was very likely to be from a large faction. The president was extremely cautious. After all, how could a blacksmith be nurtured without the support of significant power? It required a lot of iron, money, and a rare talent in forging. It had been long since a blacksmith master appeared after the Flaming Hammer's death. That was why they paid so much attention to the Golden Warhammer Terra. "That's right. I want to auction it. In addition, I want to form a partnership with your auction house. From now on, I'll auction a batch of master weapons and equipment that I forge here monthly," Levi said. He planned to release some of them in batches but not too many at a time. After all, even if he were a blacksmith master, the production would not be slow. If he released too much, it would be easy to be suspected. Moreover, the rarer something was, the more valuable it was. If he released too much at once, it would quickly cause his value as blacksmith master to depreciate. Gradually building up his reputation was better. "Good, good, good. Sir Tyra, it's an honor to be able to cooperate with you. I'll apply to the higher UPS to express our sincerity in the auction. In the future, when Sir Tyra comes to the Shining Tavern, we'll give you a free entrance ticket, and we'll also give you a corresponding discount on the auction handling fee. However, before signing the contract, we need to conduct a necessary assessment of Sir Tyra. This assessment's purpose is only to confirm that Sir Tyra forged the knight's long sword. There is no malice or disrespect to it. I hope Sir Tyra doesn't mind." Naturally, Levi agreed. He had forged his own pieces bit by bit, so he was not afraid of being tested. The auction house brought him to a private blacksmith shop in the Shining Tavern. Then, he deliberately slowed down his forging pace and efficiency, imitating an average blacksmith. He forged a knight's longsword that was the same as before and named it Autumn. Together with the first sword, which he named Lakelight, both were handed over to the auction house. In the end, Levi's forging skills convinced the skeptical workers. They could not help but applaud and sign the contract with Levi on the spot. Levi could be considered to have found a stable sales channel for his future forgings. If he could make a name for himself, with the Shining Tavern's stable channel covering the entire continent, the Wild-Boar Knight would be dispensable. Levi could then consider settling the score with the Wild-Boar Knight. Old Toby must have gained experience from the Wild-Boar Knight, and it was time for him to go home. At night, the Shining auction was held as scheduled. There was no breathing technique or precious materials that Levi wanted among the items auctioned this time. He stayed here to see whether the longsword he forged would sell well. After a while, Levi's knight's longsword was brought up to the stage by the auctioneer. The beautiful auctioneer had a graceful figure and raised her voice. "Next, let me introduce the knight's longsword forged by the exclusive blacksmith master of this auction, Sir Tyra, the Golden Warhammer, the Lake Light and Autumn. These two knight's longswords are forged from fine iron. Sir Tyra forged it after 21 days of painstaking efforts and thousands of tempering. In terms of quality, they are on par with the legendary blacksmith master Flaming Hammers. The people below were in an uproar as soon as she finished speaking. What is it? Blacksmith master? Are there still blacksmith masters in this era? A bearded blacksmith said in a low voice, who is Golden Warhammer? As an official blacksmith, I've never heard of him in the industry. He must be a liar. Many people did not believe him at all. This beautiful auctioneer had taken out a long sword forged from flaming hammer. She had also randomly selected many knight-level powerhouses or official blacksmiths from the guests present to grasp the quality of the knight's long swords. The bearded blacksmith was also invited to the stage. After a round of comparison, these people found that the quality of these two swords was not much different from the sword of the flaming hammer. The bearded blacksmith's spirit perked up. It's impossible to judge the quality of a knight's sword just by its appearance. Since it's a long sword, it should be tested in actual combat. The beautiful auctioneer was not angry because of the distrustful bearded man. Instead, she smiled and said, "Since this gentleman is also a blacksmith, why don't you take out the long sword you forged and Lake Light forged by Sir Golden Warhammer and let the two knights here have a real battle?" Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Immediately, countless gazes focused on the bearded man. He coughed. He was in a dilemma, so he could only bite the bullet and say, "Let's try. Who's afraid?" Then, Lake Light and the sword forged by the bearded man were handed over to two official knights with similar strength, and they began to fight on the stage. Ping, 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 pot, pot, pot. For a moment, everyone watched a free and exciting swordsmanship competition at the auction house. In the end, with a cracking sound, there seemed to be a crack. Everyone responded and looked over. The sword forged by the bearded man had unknowingly bent, and even invisible cracks appeared on the blade. How is this possible? The bearded man was in disbelief. Lake Light is not made of ordinary refined iron. I think it's made of mithril. This is cheating. He continued to argue. The auction house did as he wished and carried out the test. When the final test was done, the result was 100% refined iron without mithril. Backstage, Levi sneered in his heart. He would not have sold the sword if it were fused with mithril. Finally, everyone had to admit that the knight's long sword was extraordinary. The bearded man left the auction hall with his sword while the auctioneer smiled. Although it was made of the same material, this long sword had reached the peak of perfection. It could cut through iron as if it was mud. If it were an ordinary knight's long sword, its blade would not take long to be damaged. The difference between the quality of the swords caused Levi's knight's long sword to be sold for 50 gold coins in total. Lake Light was sold for 30 gold coins, and the Autumn was sold for 20. A typical knight's long sword was only worth about 1 gold coin. The price difference was extreme. Even if the quality of this long sword was much higher than ordinary long swords, it was not worth 30 gold coins. The premium was mainly because of the title of blacksmith master. Many nobles and knights talked about owning a knight's long sword forged by a blacksmith master. This could be seen from their enthusiasm for the flaming hammer. However, the flaming hammer was someone from a long time ago. The works he left behind were scattered throughout the kingdom, and there was not enough to share. Therefore, the price kept rising. Moreover, iron products would rust and rust, so the newer the sword, the higher its value. Levi looked at everything satisfactorily and received his share of the gold coins. The staff of the Shining Auction said, "Sir Tyra, many nobles and knights want to contact you through us and ask you to customize swords." "I don't have time, so I won't customize it individually," Levi said. "What if they pay you large sums?" the staff member asked. "Then, that's fine, but we can't have too many people. You can do as you see fit. Anyway, I'll leave my forged items to you. As for whether it's an auction or a custom order, I don't care," Levi said. Then, he left the Shining Tavern in a hurry. And the news of a new blacksmith master quickly spread throughout Icewind City. He believed that as time passed, the name of the golden warhammer Terra would spread throughout the entire Emerald Kingdom through the bards and imites. Levi found a small inn in Icewind City and stayed there temporarily. He took out the books on the language and customs of the Tuva Empire that he bought and began to read. After flipping through it once, Levi opened his proficiency panel. There isn't anything. His face darkened. In the end, Levi repeatedly tried many books. It was confirmed that his dream of quickly mastering the Tuva language through experience had been shattered. However, he still decided to make a trip to the Tuva Empire in person, hoping to obtain enough ambergris in one go to break through to the Grand Knight level. However, that would require a guide. Chapter 79, Gold, Evil Spirit, Fist of the Empire. 1. Chapter 79, Gold, Evil Spirit, Fist of the Empire. 1. Levi began preparing after being sure he was going to the Tuva Empire. Although the Tuva Empire was a neighboring country, it should be thousands of miles from the Emerald Kingdom. Finding a guide who could speak the Tuva language was one thing. Besides that, Levi naturally wanted to understand more about the Tuva Empire's local customs. There was also the necessary poison, healing medicine, casting materials, and food supplies. They all needed time to prepare. Levi was about to go out to the northernmost part of the Northern Territory, Montenegro Mountain City. It was a bigger and more majestic city than Icewind City, with a permanent population of nearly 500,000. The owner of the city was the most experienced of the Northern Seven Flying Cavalry and possibly the most powerful Montenegro knight. The Montenegro Mountain Castle was located in the center of the city. It towered into the sky and was even more majestic than the Church of Holy Light outside the city. In the city, the most magnificent building was the church. The Black Snake Castle's army was heavily guarded. Black Whale guards patrolled the city, and an army personally led by the Duke of Montenegro was stationed in Montenegro Mountain City. Since the establishment of the Emerald Kingdom, there have been many dukes, but most of them have declined with the evolution of history. The Montenegro Mountain family was naturally not simple since it could be passed down to this day. The Duke of Montenegro was a middle-aged man who looked elegant and easygoing. He was tall, slender, stylish, and solid. However, he did not look reckless. Instead, he had an exquisite and scholarly air. He was looking at a map in his bedroom. It was a map of the Emerald Kingdom. Many territories were marked on it, such as Stormy Hill in the Blue Ocean Province and Tulip Hill in the Lush Forest Province. "Father, I'm back." Outside the door, a tall, beautiful, and elegant young lady dressed in a noble hunting suit alighted from her horse. She was the youngest daughter of the Duke of Montenegro, who should also be Madame Edward now. Her husband was the famous White Horse Knight. "Why are you back?" The Duke of Montenegro put away the map and opened the door. He frowned as he looked at his daughter. The younger daughter said, "I missed you and wanted to return to see you." "Can't I?" The Duke of Montenegro asked casually, "Where's Edward? What has he been busy with recently?" The younger daughter complained, "Don't ask. I don't see him much. He always uses the excuse of cultivating breathing techniques to brush me off, even if it's just for a walk. It's not good to marry Prince Charming, especially when he's just a little prince. He's a blockhead who doesn't know anything other than cultivation. He's powerful, but his scheming brothers and sisters always ostracize him." The Duke of Montenegro kept silent. He noticed his younger daughter was carrying a knight's longsword and commented, "This sword is not bad. Father, this is my birthday gift to you. It's Lake Light, a longsword made by the legendary blacksmith master, Sir Terra, the Golden Warhammer. My knight bought it from another collector at a high price." The Duke of Montenegro took the sword from his daughter's hand, looked at it, and said, "Indeed, not bad. This is from the hands of a master. Interesting. There's finally another blacksmith master in this world? Golden Warhammer. I've never heard of him. He removed his sword and removed a small golden box from his bedroom. It was carved with beautiful patterns, with a lovely, noble lady in a sea of flowers. It was beautiful. The Duke of Montenegro told his younger daughter, "This is a medicine I obtained from a top-notch pharmaceutical master. It's the Holy Spirit potion. To prevent the medicinal effect from evaporating, seal it with gold. It would be best if you gave this box of medicine to Edward. Edward must open it personally when he is cultivating alone. Remember, the medicine within might help him break through to legendary level. Of course, there's no guarantee of that. Please tell Edward not to have too much hope. In any case, there's no harm to him trying. After all, even with Edward's talent, it would be tough for him to break through to the legendary level without relying on external items. But no matter what, the medicine is highly precious. I am old, and my vitality was declining. I was no longer at my peak and had no hope of breaking through. I could only place my hopes on a good son-in-law like Edward. If he successfully breaks through, it will be great for you and our Montenegro mountain family." "All right, father. I'll bring it to him." The younger daughter accepted it without overthinking. After exchanging pleasantries with her father, the younger daughter left the manor. The Duke of Montenegro smiled. He believed Edward would be pleasantly surprised when he opened the golden box. Then, he took out his sword Lake Light. Wisps of black gas were injected into the long sword, and the long sword buzzed. "It is indeed a good sword. I must use such a blacksmith." Thinking of this, the Duke of Montenegro summoned one of his knights. A powerful aura could be felt with the thick and heavy plate armor, the exaggerated serrated heavy sword, the dull iron helmet, and the single eye under the helmet. The Knight of Montenegro said confidently, "Shark-Tooth Knight, I only want you to do 3 things when you lead your team to Icewine City." The knight respectfully lowered his head and said, "Sir, please speak." "First, find the whereabouts of Knight Horton. Even if the journey was far, he should have finished what I asked him to do and returned. However, if he hasn't, he has betrayed me or met with misfortune. No matter the situation, I want to see him. Dead or alive." Chapter 80, Gold, Evil Spirit, Fist of the Empire. 2. Chapter 80, Gold, Evil Spirit, Fist of the Empire. 2. Second, help me invite the blacksmith master Golden Warhammer Tyra, who appeared in Icewine City, to Montenegro City. It would be best if you asked him back before the other lords. A legendary blacksmith master is highly strategic to my plans. If he disagrees, kidnap him by force. Don't hurt his hands and feet. I have my ways to make him work for me. Third, go to Blackwater Valley and visit my old friend's son, Baron Levi. He has given me many surprises during this period. I want to know what happened to this child. If he is already dead, then forget it. Finally, for this operation, don't bring anyone else. Just go outside and find some mercenaries," said the Duke of Montenegro. "Yes, sir. I will not fail you." Shark-Tooth Knight turned around and left to prepare for the long journey. He had advanced to a Grand Knight last year. He was the secret trump card of the Duke of Montenegro and had been hidden for many years. The Duke of Montenegro was most at ease when he was the one to act. As for the Bird of Death's voice, the Duke of Montenegro finally understood. Ever since the death of the Thousand-Faced Knight, this organization was nothing but a motley crew. Many years ago, Pale Shadow had invited him to become a shadow assassin, but he had rejected it. He was the Duke of Montenegro, so how could he have the time to play a game of killers? After doing all this, 2 small golden balls appeared in Montenegro's palm. He kept playing with them. He remembered the gift he had given Edward. He could not help but smile, who in the world would have thought that the thing sealed in this tempting gold would be the legendary terrifying evil spirit? Some time ago, the Duke of Montenegro found an ancient tomb while mining in his territory. He even found a box of gold products in the grave. They were of different shapes and sizes. He discovered that evil spirits were sealed in these gold products through the warning left behind by the tomb's owner. There were both strong and weak evil spirits, and the weak ones were at the level of grand knights. The strongest evil spirit king was even a legendary knight. He gave the White Horse Knight the most potent evil spirit, Dream Fairy Alice. According to the records of the tomb's owner, this evil spirit had wreaked havoc many times. Because of it, several large aristocratic families were destroyed. As long as the White Horse Knight opened it, it would cause massive chaos in the capital, even if he was okay. After half a month of preparation, Levi was ready to go on a long journey. He found a place to hide the pyroxene he had bought and only brought a small piece. Carrying such a large amount of pyroxene on this extended trip was too inconvenient. With the help of the Shining Tavern, Levi contacted a wandering merchant who often traveled between the Tuva Empire and the Emerald Kingdom. This merchant was also a wandering knight, like Graf. However, his main business was not ambergris. Levi spent 20 gold coins to hire this knight as his guide. They rode their horses and carried sufficient supplies, heading towards the Tuva Empire. Levi had informed Fred in advance about his departure this time, so he was not worried that Fred would worry about him at home. This wandering merchant was called Doug, and his nickname was Wild Dog Knight. Such a vulgar nickname was ubiquitous in the world of wandering knights. The Wild Dog Knight said, "Your Excellency White Wolf, when we arrive at the Tuva Empire, we should try not to conflict with the people there. The Tuva people are tough and brave, so try not to provoke them." Levi was his big client, who had changed into the White Wolf mask. After all, the Golden Warhammer Terra became quite famous, especially in the Icewind territory. Some people with ill intentions might want to harm him, so he had to be careful. "Don't worry, I know what to do. Just lead the way," Levi said. Along the way, the two would travel during the day and find a place to rest at night. Levi would hide in a safe place to cultivate breathing techniques. The cultivation efficiency was not high since he had no secret medicine for the black snake breathing technique and the vortex beast breathing technique. Levi prioritized the giant rhinoceros, raging bull, and man-faced spider breathing techniques. Half a month later, they arrived at the Tuva Empire. A month later, at the end of the month of Wheatfield, they finally arrived at a city in the Tuva Empire, Kara City. However, he heard from Doug that no ambergris existed in Kara City. They had to go to the sacred city of Lantis by the sea if they wanted ambergris. That was the capital of the Tuva Empire, the most fertile land. Ambergris was not the most valuable treasure in there. This piqued Levi's interest, and they traveled for another half a month. They finally arrived at the Tuva Empire's sacred city of Lantis at the end of the month of harvest. Sigh, it's inconvenient to travel in this other world. On the way, Levi's raging bull breathing technique was almost at level 4, the giant rhinoceros breathing technique's progress bar was more than half full, and the man-faced spider breathing technique was getting closer to level 5. Soon, a new batch of breathing techniques would be cultivated to their maximum levels. Levi was gratified. Chapter 81, Chapter 81, Gold, Evil Spirit, Fist of the Empire. Chapter 81, Gold, Evil Spirit, Fist of the Empire. However, generally, many things are still delayed. No matter what, I have to bring more ambergris back this time. Not long after, Levi and the Wild Dog Knight arrived at the gate of the Holy City. Looking at the magnificent city in front of him, the Wild Dog Knight clicked his tongue in admiration. The view of the Holy City by the sea is too magnificent. Every time I look at this huge city, I feel small. Levi did not feel anything. In his previous life, there were many cities that were bigger than the Holy City. As the largest city in the Tuva Empire, the Holy City had a population of 2 million. However, the Holy City was divided into 3 districts: the outer city, the middle city, and the inner urban area. Most of the residents of the Holy City lived in the outer city, which was crowded like slums. The middle city was where the small nobles and wealthy merchants of the Tuva Empire lived, while the inner city was where the high-ranking officials and the royal family lived. Both of them did not have a pass, but this wild dog knight was indeed resourceful. He found a way to let them enter the city. It was a circus that was going to participate in the 300th anniversary of the Holy City. The leader of the circus was a plump noble. The wild dog knight took out a few Tuva gold coins and successfully bribed the leader. Both of them went to the team behind the circus. There were some beautiful ladies dressed scantily and smoking tobacco. They were all circus staff. The circus was already used to bringing people into the city. "Put on your makeup and don't talk later," a golden-haired lady with oil paint on her face said to Li Wei. She was sitting on a cage that contained a ferocious beast. Inside the cage was a huge scorpion-tailed tiger. When this ferocious beast matured, it was as difficult to deal with as an official knight. Although it was not a match for the northern giant bear, it was almost as strong as a low-level knight. This scorpion-tailed tiger was the signature and treasure of their circus. This blonde lady was the scorpion-tailed tiger's beast tamer. Li Wei took the oil paint and applied it to his face. He was also a beast tamer, and he had the special effect of Heart of the Wild. He could sense the hostility the scorpion-tailed tiger had toward him. When the scorpion-tailed tiger saw a stranger like Li Wei, it immediately became alert. It bared its fangs at Li Wei and aimed its tail at him like a poisonous scorpion. The golden-haired lady didn't stop him. She looked at everything with interest. After all, the scorpion-tailed tiger was in the cage, so it wouldn't cause any danger. Li Wei did not move when he saw that a beast was actually hostile towards him. He only clenched his fists, causing cracking sounds to ring out. His eyes were fierce as he stared at the scorpion-tailed tiger. The beast looked into Li Wei's eyes. The beast's perception was very sharp. It saw Li Wei's pupils turn into vertical slits at that moment, staring at it like a poisonous snake, emitting a cold aura. On Li Wei's chest, a black snake coiled and danced wildly. The sea demons, giant bears, and man-faced spiders below him danced wildly, their flames soaring into the sky. These legendary ferocious beasts seemed to have come alive. Oh, the scorpion-tailed tiger suddenly cowered. It crouched in the cage, curled up in a corner, and trembled. "Miss, take care of your kitten," Li Wei said calmly. The golden-haired lady suddenly realized that her scorpion-tailed tiger seemed to be cowering. It was afraid. Is it afraid of this person? She looked suspiciously at the burly youth who did not look very old. Although he wasn't a knight, he was able to make a fierce beast that was comparable to a knight so afraid. Didn't this mean that this young man was a very powerful knight? Instantly, that playful attitude disappeared. Along the way, she did not even dare to look Li Wei in the eye. After successfully entering the city with the circus, Li Wei discovered that there were many soldiers patrolling outside the city. It seemed that they were preparing for the 300-year grand ceremony in a month. What a coincidence! It just so happens that the Holy City is at its busiest. The wild dog knight looked happy. However, Li Wei knew the purpose of this trip. Ambergris was a must. Other than that, he also had to collect as many breathing techniques, turbularian egg, and evil spirit dust as possible. The more, the better. After parting ways with the circus, the wild dog knight brought Li Wei to the largest chamber of commerce in the Holy City. "Do you have ambergris?" the wild dog knight asked. The staff of the Chamber of Commerce nodded. "Yes, one bottle costs 100 Tuva dollars. There are 5 bottles left. How many do you need?" Li Wei frowned. The price was not bad. Converted to the standard gold coins of the Emerald Kingdom, It was about 200 gold coins per bottle. It was much cheaper than the ones in the kingdom. The kingdom had sold it for 300 gold coins, but it was still impossible to buy it. However, there were only 5 bottles, this was not enough. It wasn't easy for him to come here, but taking only 5 bottles would be a loss. I want all 5 of them. Are there any more? Li Wei made the wild dog knight ask the staff. If you want more, in the shortest duration, you'll have to wait for a month. In a month's time, there will be a traditional beast fighting performance at the Holy City ceremony. At that time, the Holy City's guardian god, the Fist of the Empire, will perform killing earthly dragon beasts with his bare hands in the Colosseum. After that, a batch of ambergris will be handed over to our Chamber of Commerce for sale. Chapter 82, The Power of the Seal of Protection. Chapter 82, The Power of the Seal of Protection. The Fist of the Empire. Even Levi had heard of this person. The reason was that he was too famous, almost like a white horse knight. No, he was more famous than the white horse knight. This was because he had become a symbol and guardian of the Tuva Empire and the Holy City. Although he was not a legendary knight, he was more powerful than them. Such a person was only a step away from becoming a legend. Therefore, for someone like him, killing the earthly dragon beasts with his bare hands was not a problem. Levi also wanted to meet the true experts other than his father. He asked the staff again but was told that there was no such thing as a turbularian egg. This kind of secret medicine material was too unpopular. It was likely that only the vortex beast breathing technique needed it. As for the core of the undead and evil spirit dust, the staff had never heard of them before. This was normal. These were all casting materials, so it was within Levi's expectations that he could not buy them. As for the breathing technique, it was the same as the Jade Chamber of Commerce. They didn't sell it. Levi could tell that no matter which country he was in, breathing techniques were not allowed to be sold on the surface. He could probably only buy them from the black market. Levi asked the wild dog knight to pay 500 tuva coins to buy the ambergris. He had exchanged it with gold coins in the black market before he came. This time, Levi did not bring much money with him. He planned to find a place to live in seclusion in the Holy City for a while, thinking of ways to earn money while buying ambergris for cultivation. He would not return to the territory for the time being. In any case, ordinary enemies would not pose any threat to the territory. To Levi, the territory was just a money-making tool. Now that he was a craftsman, he was less dependent on the territory. Besides the Duke of Montenegro, Levi did not have any enemies. If a top-notch Grand Knight like the Duke of Montenegro went to find trouble with him, he might be in danger even in his territory. With the help of the Wild Dog Knight, he successfully found a place in the middle urban area to stay. A month's rent in this area was enough for the civilians in the outer city to rent for a year. Soon after, he collected the other ingredients for the black snake secret medicine and concocted it. Then, he immediately began to cultivate the breathing technique. Time was power, and Levi did not want to waste a single second. Levi also asked the Wild Dog Knight to help him find a small blacksmith shop for rent in the outer city, and the knight managed to find one that cost 1 tuva per month. This way, it would be more convenient for him to earn some money while cultivating. He only had 1,000 tuva coins left. Although he was definitely considered rich in the Holy City, it was only enough for Levi to buy 10 bottles of ambergris. His plan this time was to bring back dozens of bottles. It was definitely not possible for him not to make money. These days, it was very lively outside because of the preparations for the grand ceremony. There was a feeling of celebration. However, Levi did not care at all. He did not step out of the door and quietly cultivated in his residence. 5 days later, the Raging Bull breathing technique broke through to level 4. Just as Levi had expected, the level 4 Raging Bull breathing technique was already the limit. Levi. Bull breathing technique, level 4, maximum. Special effect, beginner's strength. Levi felt that his strength had increased slightly. He couldn't help but shake his head. What a trashy cultivation technique. I'd better look forward to the giant rhinoceros breathing technique. After all, that technique should be able to break through to level 5. 15 days later, the giant rhinoceros breathing technique reached level 4. As expected, level 4 was not the giant rhinoceros breathing technique's limit. Levi dash. Giant rhinoceros breathing technique, level 4, 1/20,000. Special effect. Beginner strength. I should be able to cultivate it to level 5. At that time, I'll strengthen the giant bear and the barbaric bull for the giant rhinoceros to prepare for the breakthrough. Levi was in a good mood. Apart from the limits of these two breathing techniques, Levi's black snake breathing technique, with the help of the newly obtained black snake secret medicine, had once again experienced a huge increase in proficiency. As long as the black snake secret medicine was kept up, he should be able to reach level 6 by the end of this year or the beginning of next year and advance to a high-level knight. His black snake aura had already covered his chest. In this way, his chest would have a fifth layer of defense other than the cloth armor, scale armor, chain mail, and heart armor. The 5 layers of armor? Who could break his defense? Levi was satisfied. In the past few days, he had also allowed the wild dog knight to collect the materials needed to cast the seal of protection in the holy city. Now it was time to experiment. Levi quickly formed a hand seal and threw out a shimmering casting material. Bang! Levi felt a mysterious power pouring into his head and then spreading out through his entire body. At the same time, the released material, which was mainly composed of pyroxene, shone brightly. The powder began to envelop Levi's surroundings. Faint white light formed lines from dots, and lines formed surfaces. It quickly formed a bell-like shield around Levi's body. Levi reached out to touch the shield and found that he could reach out. It can't be that it's ineffective, right? At the same time, Levi had prepared a mechanism in advance, one that was capable of throwing a rock at him. Levi was also prepared inside the shield. If the shield did not work, he would instantly break the rock. The rock hit the shield. The impact shook it, but the shield didn't break. It succeeded. Levi looked at the rock that had fallen to the ground and cracked under the shield. This defense is not bad. I just don't know if it can withstand the attack of an official knight. However, it's already very good to have such an effect even though I've just entered level 1. After all, I mainly want to use this shield to resist the evil spirit's strange attacks. To resist physical attacks, I can mainly rely on the black gas and armor. Very good. Now that I have stacked 6 layers of armor, who can instantly kill me? Levi was satisfied and felt a sense of security. 5 seconds later, the shield automatically dissipated. On Levi's stats window, the seal of protection appeared. Seal of protection, level 1, 1/1000. According to the manual, the duration and defensive power of the shield would increase with the cultivation of the cultivator. Of course, it was also related to the density of the bloodline. In general, the seal of protection was divided into 3 layers. The first layer was pure white protection. The second layer was bright silver protection. The third layer was the golden protection. Levi's white protective barrier was only at its weakest level. If one reached the golden protection realm, they would be physically invulnerable and magically invulnerable to evil spirits. Winchester's ancestor had once reached this level. This was also Levi's goal. As the materials he brought to the Tuva Empire were limited, Levi did not waste the proficiency of the pyroxene seal of protection. The casting materials he had on him now should be enough to cast seal of protection 10 times and seal of flame 20 times. It was enough to be his trump card. Levi believed that even in the Tuva Empire's holy city, where experts were as common as clouds, there should be only a handful of people who could make him use the seal. Moreover, he would not take the initiative to cause trouble. After all, this was the holy city. Although he was strong, the city was guarded by the fist of the empire. He could not afford to cause trouble. I'm almost done cultivating. I should go and forge some weapons and sell them in the Shining Tavern. After Levi finished stretching his muscles and bones, he quietly left the house. In a place as big as the holy city, there was naturally a branch of the Shining Tavern. Levi had previously become a noble member of the Shining Tavern through the identity of the Golden Warhammer, so he knew the location of the Shining Tavern in the Holy City. Not long after, Levi arrived at the outer urban area and found a group of people gathered in front of his blacksmith shop. Who are you? Where did old Hank go? He should pay the protection fee. The leader of the crowd, who had a scar on his face, narrowed his eyes and said impatiently. Part 5 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.